Rome wasn't built in a day, but it was destroyed in less than a century. This is the complete, uncut story of the greatest empire in human history, from the legendary founding by Romulus and Remus to the final fall of Constantinople in 1453. We're covering it all: the Republic's bloody civil wars, Caesar's assassination, Augustus's golden age, the madness of Caligula, the glory of Trajan, and the chaos that brought down an empire that once ruled 65 million people across 3 continents. Buckle up, because we're about to journey through 2,200 years of triumph, betrayal, and the ultimate collapse of Rome. Though before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, let us know where you're watching from and what time it is. We're on to building a global community here. So without further ado, let's begin, shall we? In the shadow of the 7 hills, Rome begins here. Not in marble halls or golden temples, but in mud. 7 hills rise from the Tiber's marshy banks. The year? Somewhere around 1000 BCE. No empire exists, no legions march, just scattered huts of wattle and daub, their inhabitants scraping out existence from reluctant soil. The land itself shapes destiny. Italy juts into the Mediterranean like a boot ready to kick. Mountains run down its spine, the Apennines creating isolated valleys and defensive positions. To the north, the Alps form a wall against invasion. To the south, fertile plains promise abundance, and everywhere the sea beckons with trade routes and distant shores. But focus on those 7 hills. The Palatine, where shepherds graze their flocks. The Capitoline, rising steep and defensible. The Aventine, Celian, Esquiline, Quirinal, Viminal. Each will play its part. Together they command the Tiber crossing, the only reliable ford for miles. Control this spot, control central Italy. The story Romans tell themselves comes wrapped in divine purpose. Twin boys, Romulus and Remus, cast into the Tiber by a jealous uncle. A she-wolf finds them, nurses them in her cave. A shepherd raises them. They grow strong, overthrow their uncle, decide to found a city. But where? The brothers quarrel. Auguries are taken, sacred birds counted in sacred sky. Romulus claims victory, marks his boundary with a plowed furrow. Remus mocks him, leaps across the symbolic wall. Romulus strikes him down. The city's first stone is mortared with fratricide. Rome enters the world through blood. Archaeological evidence tells a quieter tale. No wolves, no murdered twins, instead gradual clustering of Iron Age villages. Pottery shards and post holes mark where life slowly concentrated. The Forum Romanum, later the empire's heart, starts as a cemetery between settlements. Bodies are burned, their ashes placed in crude urns shaped like the huts they lived in. By the 8th century BCE, something shifts. The villages merge. Drainage projects begin. Channels cut to tame the Forum's swamp. Communal effort replaces isolation. A shared identity emerges, though Rome as a concept remains decades away. The Etruscans arrive from the north, bringing transformation. No conquering army, but merchants and craftsmen who recognize opportunity. They find the Latin tribes receptive to new ideas. Etruscan kings will rule Rome for over a century, though Roman tradition later minimizes this foreign dominance. Under Etruscan influence, Rome transforms from village to city. Streets follow planned grids. Stone replaces mud brick. The Forum's marsh becomes paved meeting ground. Most crucially, Etruscans bring writing, adapted Greek letters that become Latin script. They introduce the arch, engineering marvel that will define Roman architecture. They demonstrate how small kingdoms can project power through organization rather than mere numbers. The Senate appears in this period, a council of elders, literally old men, who advise the king. Each clan sends its patriarch. These senators own the land, command the loyalty, control the religious rites. Power concentrates in their hands, even as kings rule above them. 3 social classes crystallize. Patricians, the original families who claim descent from Romulus's first senators. Their blood is Rome's blood, or so they insist. Plebeians, everyone else who holds citizenship, free but not equal. And slaves, growing numbers of war captives and debtors who become property. Religion permeates every decision. No public act proceeds without consulting the gods. Augurs read bird flights. Haruspices examine entrails. The sacred fire of Vesta must never die. Jupiter best and greatest watches from the Capitoline. Mars guards the boundaries. Every stream, grove, and crossroads has its spirit demanding propitiation. The last Etruscan king, Tarquinius Superbus, Tarquin the Proud, rules through fear rather than custom. Ancient sources paint him as tyrant, though they write centuries after his fall. His son Sextus allegedly assaults Lucretia, a virtuous noblewoman. She reveals the crime, then takes her own life to preserve honor. The patricians have their pretext. Lucius Junius Brutus, playing the fool to survive Tarquin's purges, throws off his mask. He displays Lucretia's body in the forum. The people rise. Tarquin flees to Etruria, gathers armies, tries to reclaim his throne, but something fundamental has changed. Never again will Rome accept a king. The very word rex becomes profanity in Roman mouths. 2 consuls will rule instead, sharing power, limiting each other. 1-year terms prevent accumulation of authority. The Republic is born from trauma and oath. Romans swear by Jupiter himself that no king will rule them again. This transformation occurs around 509 BCE, though exact dates blur in the mists. What matters is the idea taking root. Power shared rather than concentrated, terms limited rather than lifetime, law supreme over personal will. The seeds of representative government, imperfect but revolutionary, push through ancient soil. Yet the Republic's first years bring chaos rather than stability. Without a king to arbitrate, patricians and plebeians clash openly. Debt slavery crushes small farmers. Military service required of all citizens means crops rot while men fight. The patricians control religious offices, legal interpretation, even the calendar itself. Knowledge becomes power hoarded by the few. External threats multiply. Tarquin convinces neighboring cities to attack. The Etruscans want their puppet back. Latin tribes see opportunity in Rome's disorder. The infant republic faces strangulation in its cradle. But Romans discover something within themselves, a stubborn refusal to yield. When Lars Porsena of Clusium besieges the city, Horatius Cocles holds the bridge alone while Romans destroy it behind him. When Mucius Scaevola fails to assassinate Porsena, he thrusts his hand into fire to demonstrate Roman resolve. Stories? Perhaps. But stories shape souls. The Republic survives through discipline and adaptation. The legions develop. Citizen soldiers fighting not for pay, but for their own land and freedom. The manipular system emerges, flexible formations replacing rigid phalanxes. Roman military science begins its long evolution. More importantly, Romans learn to incorporate rather than simply conquer. Defeated enemies can become allies, even citizens, in time. This radical idea, expanding identity rather than maintaining exclusion, becomes Rome's secret weapon. Where others build walls, Rome builds roads. By 500 BCE, the monarchy lies buried but not forgotten. Its symbols persist: the purple stripe, the ivory chair, the bundle of rods around an axe called fasces. Power changes hands but retains its trappings. The Senate grows stronger, though still checked by popular assemblies. The stage is set. A small city-state controls perhaps 20 miles of territory. Enemies surround it. Internal divisions threaten to tear it apart. No observer would bet on its survival, let alone future dominance. Yet something drives these people. Call it ambition, necessity, or destiny. They've overthrown their kings and sworn sacred oaths. They've created something new, imperfect, conflicted, but alive with possibility. In the shadow of 7 hills, an experiment begins. Citizens will rule themselves through law rather than submit to royal whim. It's a dangerous idea in a world of god-kings and hereditary power. The infant republic takes its first uncertain steps. Giants await: Carthage across the sea, successor kingdoms of Alexander to the east. But first, Rome must survive its own birth pangs and conquer its own peninsula. The 7 hills watch and wait. The Tiber flows on, carrying fortune and blood in equal measure. And somewhere in Etruscan exile, Tarquin the Proud plots his return. Not knowing his expulsion has unleashed forces that will reshape the world. Rome's greatest centuries lie ahead, but they begin here, in the shadow of the 7 hills, where shepherds became citizens and a kingdom's end birthed an empire's beginning. The birth of a republic. The drums beat through the night. Tarquin the Proud marshals his forces beyond Rome's walls. Inside, panic spreads like plague. The year is 509 BCE, and the newborn republic faces its first existential test. Brutus knows the stakes. The man who sparked revolution now must defend it. He arrays the citizen militia on the Campus Martius, farmers clutching spears with hands more used to plows. Across the field, professional Etruscan warriors sneer at these amateur soldiers. The battle erupts at dawn. Bronze clashes against bronze. Men who shared wine yesterday now seek each other's blood. In the melee's heart, Brutus spots Aruns, Tarquin's son. They charge each other with the fury of personal hatred. Spears find their marks simultaneously. Both fall, locked in death's embrace. Rome wins the field, but at terrible cost. Their liberator lies dead before the Republic's first year ends, yet his sacrifice sanctifies the cause. The consul's funeral becomes a celebration of Republican virtue, duty before life, state before self. Power abhors a vacuum. With kings gone, who rules? The patricians assume their birthright, but plebeians have other ideas. They bled for freedom too. Why should only noble blood hold office? The machinery of government takes shape through conflict and compromise. Two consuls will share executive power, imperium, backed by the same authority kings wielded. But checks multiply. Each consul can veto the other. Terms last 1 year only. After serving, they face prosecution for any crimes committed in office. The Senate grows from advisory body to governing force. 300 men serving for life, providing continuity while consuls rotate. They control foreign policy, state finances, religious matters. Their decrees carry moral rather than legal force. But what senator dares defy collective will? Below them, popular assemblies give citizens voice. The Comitia Centuriata elects major magistrates and decides on war. But voting follows wealth. The rich control more centuries than the poor multitude. Democracy exists, but weighted toward property. Lesser magistrates emerge to handle growing complexity. Quaestors manage finances. Aediles supervise markets and games. Most importantly, praetors develop to administer justice. Roman law begins its long journey from custom to code. The plebeians watch this system solidify their exclusion. Patricians monopolize high office through religious authority. Only they can take auspices, read sacred signs. Without divine approval, no public act holds validity. Knowledge of legal procedures remains oral tradition passed between patrician fathers and sons. Debt drives the crisis deeper. Wars mean conscription. Conscription means abandoned farms. Abandoned farms mean borrowing for seed. Bad harvests mean slavery. A Roman can sell himself to pay debts. Patrician creditors show no mercy to plebeian debtors. The breaking point arrives in 494 BCE. Rome fights on multiple fronts. Volscians, Aequians, Sabines all press the boundaries. The consuls call for levies. The plebeians refuse. Not just refusal, they march out of Rome entirely, occupying the Sacred Mount 3 miles away. The first general strike in recorded history paralyzes the state. Without plebeian soldiers, Rome cannot defend itself. Without plebeian labor, daily life grinds to halt. The patricians rage, but find themselves helpless. Force would shatter the republic beyond repair. Negotiation replaces confrontation. Menenius Agrippa, respected by both orders, tells the crowd a parable. The body's limbs once rebelled against the belly, calling it parasitic, but when they refuse to feed it, all parts weaken together. Message clear: society needs all classes functioning. The plebeians listen but demand concrete protections. Thus arise the tribunes of the plebs, sacred persons whose bodies cannot be touched. They gain power to veto any magistrate's action, to protect any citizen from arbitrary power. Their persons are sacrosanct. To harm a tribune brings automatic death curse. This office revolutionizes Roman politics. Tribunes need not be wealthy or noble, only plebeian and persuasive. They sit outside normal hierarchy yet can halt the entire system. Through them, popular will find institutional voice. The 12 tables emerge from continued struggle. Around 450 BCE, plebeians demand written law, no more secret knowledge hoarded by patricians. A commission travels to Athens, studies Solon's reforms. They return with Rome's first law code, inscribed on bronze tablets displayed in the Forum. The laws seem harsh by later standards. Debtors can still be enslaved. Fathers hold life and death power over children. But crucially, everyone now knows the rules. Justice becomes slightly less arbitrary. Precedent begins accumulating into legal tradition. Yet the commission itself demonstrates republican fragility. The decemvirs, 10 men appointed to write laws, refuse to step down. Like Greek tyrants, they use reform as path to power. Their leader, Appius Claudius, lusts after Virginia, a plebeian maiden. When she refuses, he claims she's actually a slave. Her father, Virginius, faces impossible choice: watch his daughter enslaved and dishonored, or save her through death. He chooses the knife. Virginia's blood in the Forum sparks second plebeian succession. The decemvirs fall. Regular government resumes. Another lesson written in tragedy: eternal vigilance guards freedom. Through these crises, Roman character crystallizes: gravitas, seriousness of purpose; pietas, duty to gods, state, and family; virtus, manly courage proven through service. These aren't just ideals, but social requirements. Reputation matters more than wealth. Public disgrace brings living death. The story of Cincinnatus captures this ethos perfectly. Called from his plow to serve as dictator, emergency commander with absolute power, he defeats Rome's enemies in 16 days. Then, instead of clinging to authority, he returns to his farm. Power serves purpose, not ambition. This idealized behavior masks grinding poverty for most Romans. The city remains small, perhaps 30,000 souls, most scratch subsistence from tiny plots. Malaria haunts the marshes. Infant mortality claims half of all children. Life expectancy barely reaches 30. Glory comes dear. But something drives them forward. Greeks might philosophize about ideal states. Romans build through practice and precedent. Each crisis survived adds strength. Each compromise reached expands inclusion. The Republic learns by doing, adapting rather than designing. Military service binds citizens together. Rich and poor stand in battle line, though rich can afford better armor. Shared danger creates shared identity. Veterans return with broader horizons, having seen how other peoples live. Roman pragmatism absorbs useful innovations. Religion reinforces civic duty. Public rights matter more than private belief. Proper ceremonies ensure divine favor for the state. The Pontifex Maximus, chief priest, ranks among the highest honors. Sacred and secular intertwine inextricably. By 450 BC, the Republic has survived its birth trauma. Institutions solidify yet remain flexible. The conflict between orders continues, but within established channels. Compromise replaces revolution as the preferred path forward. External pressures force internal cooperation. The Equians and Volscians raid annually. Veii, the great Etruscan city, looms 12 miles north. Gallic tribes probe from beyond the Po Valley. Survival requires unity, whatever the social tensions. Rome develops its signature strategy: divide and conquer diplomacy, backed by military force. Some cities become allies with local autonomy. Others face destruction and absorption. Latin neighbors receive special status, halfway to citizenship. Each arrangement is unique, preventing unified opposition. The census emerges as a crucial institution. Every 5 years, citizens declare property and family status. Military obligations and voting rights follow wealth. Social mobility exists. A plebeian who prospers can rise in centuries. The system rewards success while maintaining hierarchy. Infrastructure projects begin transforming the physical city. The Cloaca Maxima, Great Sewer, drains the Forum definitively. Temples rise on the hills. Roads stretch toward allied cities. Architecture proclaims permanence and ambition, yet Romans remain superstitious about expansion. The sacred boundary, Pomerium, marks city limits. Within lies civilization, beyond lurks dangerous divine forces. Armies cannot enter without purification. Generals must surrender command at the gates. The Republic guards against military dictatorship through religious scruple. Cultural life develops slowly. Greeks produce poetry and philosophy. Romans perfect warfare and law. Greek remains the prestige language. Latin serves for commands and contracts. Entertainment means religious festivals and military triumphs, not theatrical sophistication. Women occupy ambiguous space. Legally under male guardianship, they nonetheless manage households and property. Stories celebrate feminine virtue: Lucretia's sacrifice, Virginia's tragedy. The Vestal virgins tend Rome's sacred flame, wielding religious authority no man can match. Contradiction defines their status: honored but controlled. The halfway point of the 5th century finds Rome transformed yet recognizable. No longer a monarchy, but not yet an empire. The Seven Hills support perhaps 60,000 inhabitants. Territory extends maybe 40 miles in any direction. Powerful for a city-state, insignificant on Mediterranean scale, but foundations are laid. Political institutions balance competing interests. Military organization combines discipline with flexibility. Religious authority legitimizes state power. Law slowly replaces custom and force. Most crucially, Romans have learned they can change while maintaining identity. The Republic adapts to crisis through institutional innovation. New offices arise to meet new challenges. Excluded groups gain inclusion through struggle and negotiation. This capacity for controlled transformation becomes Rome's greatest strength. Where other states shatter under pressure, Rome bends and reforms. The republic, born from revolution, discovers stability through constant evolution. The birth pangs end. Childhood begins. Soon Rome must face competitors beyond local tribes and neighboring cities. But first, internal consolidation continues. The orders inch toward equality. Military science advances through bloody experience. Economic networks spread through central Italy. In 450 BCE, no one could predict Mediterranean dominion. The Republic remains one state among many, distinctive but not destined for greatness. Carthage controls western trade routes. Greek cities dominate culture and commerce. Persian power looms in the east. Yet seeds are planted in Roman soil. Citizens who overthrew kings have tasted self-governance. Institutions exist to channel ambition and resolve conflict. Military service creates common identity across class lines. Law slowly tames arbitrary power. The Republic has been born. Now it must grow, suffer, learn, and ultimately conquer. But that lies ahead. For now, farmers return to fields between campaigns. Senators debate in the forum. Tribunes guard plebeian interests. Consuls serve their single years. Rome endures. The Seven Hills witness another spring planting, another autumn harvest. The Tiber carries trade goods downstream. And somewhere in distant lands, future enemies sharpen bronze spears, unaware that a new power rises in central Italy. The birth is complete. The Republic lives. Its greatest trials and triumphs await. The conquest of Italy. The Gauls come like a storm from the north. Wild-haired giants wielding long swords, they pour through the Alpine passes in 390 BCE. Roman scouts bring terrifying reports, an endless horde moving south, destroying everything in its path. At the Allia River, 11 miles from Rome, the legions make their stand. Traditional tactics meet barbarian fury. The result is massacre. Gallic swords, longer than Roman gladii, hack through shields and armor. The center collapses. Flanks dissolve into panic. Romans flee, many drowning in the Tiber's current rather than face those terrible blades. Rome lies defenseless. Most citizens evacuate, carrying what they can. Only the oldest senators remain, sitting in their ivory chairs and dressed in ceremonial robes. They choose death with dignity over flight. When Gauls storm the forum, they find these living statues. One barbarian touches a senator's beard in wonder. The old man strikes him with his staff. The spell breaks. Slaughter begins. Fire consumes the city. Temples burn. Archives turn to ash. Centuries of accumulated tradition vanish in smoke. The Gauls rampage for days, drunk on wine and destruction. Only the Capitoline Hill holds out, its steep cliffs defying assault. Legend speaks of sacred geese saving Rome. As Gauls attempt a night climb, the birds raise alarm. Marcus Manlius awakens, throws the first attacker off the cliff. Romans rally, holding the summit. More likely, simple geography and desperate courage preserve this last stronghold. But holding one hill means nothing if the city burns. Brennus, the Gallic chieftain, offers terms, 1,000 pounds of gold for withdrawal. Romans scrape together the ransom. At the weighing, Brennus throws his sword onto the scales, demanding extra payment. Vae victis, he declares. Woe to the conquered. Camillus arrives with reinforcements just as gold changes hands. Rome's exiled dictator, recalled in desperation, attacks immediately. Street fighting erupts among ruins. Gauls, laden with plunder and wine-sick, fight poorly in confined spaces. They retreat, are caught on the march, destroyed completely, or so Roman tradition claims. More likely, disease and homesickness drew Gauls north after months of occupation. But Romans need heroes, not historical nuance. Camillus becomes the second founder, rebuilding from ashes. The trauma reshapes everything. Romans rebuild with stone, not wood. New walls rise, 12 feet thick, 24 feet high. The Servian wall circles all 7 hills, protection against future catastrophe. Never again will Rome lie exposed. Military reform follows disaster. The old phalanx, proven obsolete against Gallic mobility, gives way to the manipular system. 3 lines, hastati principes triari, provide depth and flexibility. Soldiers train relentlessly. Iron discipline replaces citizen enthusiasm. The disaster also accelerates political change. Plebeians who fled alongside patricians demand greater equality. The Licinian Sextian laws of 367 BCE mandate that one consul must be plebeian. The exclusive patrician hold on power cracks, then crumbles. New nobility emerges, successful plebeians joining old patricians in shared aristocracy. Recovery brings renewed expansion. Rome first secures its immediate environment. The Latin cities, once equals, now face a choice: submit or perish. Most submit. The Latin League dissolves in 338 BCE after failed rebellion. Rome stands alone atop Latium's hierarchy. Different communities receive different treatment. Some gain full citizenship, others receive citizenship without voting rights. Allied cities keep local autonomy but must provide troops. This graduated system, divide and rule through varied privileges, becomes standard Roman practice. The Samnites present a greater challenge. These mountain peoples control central Apennine passes and rich Campanian plains. 3 wars spanning 50 years test Roman resilience. Mountains favor defenders. Samnite warriors, lightly equipped, strike from heights and fade into forests. The Caudine Forks disaster of 321 BCE nearly breaks Roman power. A consular army marches into a narrow valley. Samnites block both ends. Trapped without water, facing starvation, Romans accept humiliation. They pass under the yoke, spears lashed together, forming an arch of submission. Citizens walk beneath, disarmed and mocked. Rome burns with shame. The defeated consuls offer themselves for execution. The Senate refuses peace terms. War resumes with volcanic fury. But Romans learn. Roads pierce mountain fastnesses. The Via Appia stretches arrows straight toward Capua. Fortified colonies guard key points. Engineering conquers geography. The Third Samnite War brings wider conflict. Etruscans, Umbrians, and Gauls join the Mountain Federation. At Sentinum in 295 BCE, the largest battle yet fought in Italy rages all day. Decius Mus, consul commanding the left wing, sees his line wavering. He performs devotio, ritual self-sacrifice, charging alone into enemy ranks while calling divine curses. His death rallies Romans to victory. By 290 BCE, Samnite resistance ends. Rome controls central Italy from sea to sea. But greater tests approach. Tarentum, wealthy Greek city in southern Italy, watches Roman expansion with alarm. They summon professional help. Pyrrhus of Epirus, cousin of Alexander the Great. Pyrrhus arrives in 280 BCE with 20,000 infantry, 3,000 cavalry, and 20 war elephants. Romans have never faced elephants. At Heraclea, the beasts shatter Roman lines. Horses panic at their smell and trumpeting. Men flee before mobile towers carrying archers. Yet Pyrrhus surveys the battlefield with unease. Roman dead lie in formation, wounds all in front. One more such victory, he mutters, and we are undone. His best troops lie among the corpses. Romans can replace losses from seemingly infinite manpower. He cannot. The war continues at Asculum. Romans adapt, discovering that elephants fear fire and sharp sounds. Specialized troops with flaming javelins target the beasts. The battle seesaws viciously. Pyrrhus wins again, but loses irreplaceable veterans. The term Pyrrhic victory enters language. Pyrrhus tries diplomacy, sending the smooth-tongued Cineas to Rome. The Senate wavers, impressed by generous terms. Then Appius Claudius, old and blind, has himself carried to the chamber. His speech burns with outrage. Will Romans accept terms while foreign troops pollute Italian soil? Shamed, senators reject peace. The final confrontation at Beneventum in 275 BCE sees Roman adaptability triumph. They choose broken ground where elephants struggle. When the beasts charge, Romans open lanes, letting them pass while attacking flanks. Wounded elephants rampage back through Greek ranks. Pyrrhus retreats to Greece, muttering about Romans as Hydra. Each head cut spawns 2 more. Tarentum falls in 272 BCE. Southern Italy submits to Roman hegemony. From Alpine foothills to the Strait of Messina, one power dominates. It took 2 centuries from the Republic's birth, but Italy is conquered. The conquest transforms both conqueror and conquered. Italy becomes a patchwork of statuses, full citizens, Latin rights, Italian allies. Each city maintains distinct relationships with Rome, no uniform system imposed, but all roads lead to the 7 hills. Military service binds the peninsula together. Allied contingents fight alongside legions. Shared campaigns create common identity. An Italian in Spain or Africa fights for Rome, whatever his birthplace. Victory brings common rewards. Defeat means common suffering. Roads multiply across the landscape. The Via Appia reaches Brundisium. The Via Flaminia crosses the Apennines. Engineers bridge rivers, drain swamps, cut through mountains. Movement of armies accelerates. Trade follows military highways. Cultural exchange intensifies. Colonies spread Roman presence. Veterans receive land in strategic locations. They bring Latin language, Roman law, urban planning. Grid-patterned streets replace organic growth. Forums copy Rome's original. Temples honor Roman gods alongside local deities. Yet Italy remains diverse. Greeks in the south keep their language and customs. Samnites in their mountains preserve warrior traditions. Etruscans maintain ancient rites. Rome rules but doesn't homogenize. Unity comes through shared institutions, not cultural uniformity. The profits of conquest flow to Rome. War booty enriches the state treasury. Enslaved prisoners flood markets. Patrician and plebeian nobles acquire vast estates. Small farmers, constantly conscripted, sell out to larger neighbors. Social tensions sharpen even as Rome grows powerful. New challenges emerge with victory. Governing extensive territories requires new magistracies. Praetors multiply to handle legal cases. Promagistrates extend authority beyond single-year terms. The constitution stretches to accommodate empire. Contact with Greek civilization accelerates cultural development. Southern Italian cities possess libraries, theaters, philosophical schools. Roman nobles send sons to study. Greek becomes the education language. Literature, art, and architecture flow northward. Yet Romans maintain cultural anxiety. They conquered Greece militarily, but risk being conquered culturally. Conservative senators rail against Greek softness, corrupting Roman virtue. Cato the Elder embodies resistance, learning Greek only to better argue against its influence. The conquest's completion in 270 BCE marks a turning point. Rome no longer fights for survival but for dominance. The defensive mentality that justified expansion transforms into imperial appetite. Success breeds ambition for greater success. Population explodes as security increases. The census of 280 BCE counts 287,000 male citizens. By 265 BCE, the figure reaches 382,000. Add women, children, slaves, and allies, Italy contains millions under Roman hegemony. This human resource dwarfs rival powers. Carthage relies on mercenaries. Hellenistic kingdoms use professional armies. Rome mobilizes entire citizen populations. During the Punic War, 70,000 Romans took the field simultaneously. Such numbers seem inexhaustible to enemies. The conquest also brings responsibility. Pirates must be suppressed to protect trade. Mountain tribes require periodic suppression. Gallic raids from the north demand vigilance. Empire needs constant maintenance. Most significantly, conquest makes isolation impossible. Controlling Italy means engaging the Mediterranean world. Carthage dominates western waters. Greek states jostle in the east. Rome must either compete or decline. The logic of power permits no middle ground. By 270 BCE, the Roman Republic has answered its first great test. Born from revolution, traumatized by Gallic sack, it conquered its peninsula through persistence rather than brilliance. Defeats taught harder lessons than victories. Flexibility trumped rigid tradition. The tools of empire are forged. Disciplined legions, pragmatic diplomacy, inclusive citizenship policies, engineering excellence. Romans have learned to rule diverse peoples through calibrated relationships. They've discovered that stone roads last longer than brilliant generals. Italy lies united under Roman power. The Seven Hills command resources unimaginable to Romulus or Brutus. Yet this is prologue, not conclusion. Across the sea, Carthage watches with merchants' calculation. In the east, Alexander's successors eye western expansion. The small republic born in 509 BCE has become Italy's master by 270 BCE. Local conflicts gave way to regional dominance. Now regional dominance must confront Mediterranean powers. The stakes escalate with each success. Rome stands at destiny's threshold. Behind lies Italy, conquered and partially integrated. Ahead waits the Mediterranean, promising wealth and glory but demanding prices not yet imagined. The Republic has learned to conquer. Now it must learn to rule an empire. Clash of Titans, the Punic Wars begin. The message arrives in Rome on a spring morning in 264 BCE. Mercenaries calling themselves Mamertines, sons of Mars, have seized Messana in Sicily. Carthage moves to restore order. Syracuse threatens from the south. The mercenaries beg Rome for protection. The Senate debates through the night. Sicily lies just 3 miles from Italy's toe. Whoever controls Messana commands the strait. But intervention means conflict with Carthage, the superpower that dominates western waters, whose merchants grow fat on trade from Spain to Africa. Carthage. The name itself means new city in Phoenician. Founded by Tyre, centuries before Rome expelled its kings, it commands an empire of commerce. Purple dye, silver, tin, and grain flow through its harbors. Its navy rules the waves with quinqueremes, 5-banked warships that dwarf anything Romans possess. Where Romans are farmers and soldiers, Carthaginians are traders and sailors. Their empire connects through sea lanes, not roads. Mercenaries fight their wars while citizens count profits. The two systems could not be more different, yet both have conquered their respective spheres. The Roman assembly votes for war, overruling senatorial caution. Citizens see opportunity. Rich Sicily awaits. Carthage appears distracted. They don't understand that accepting Mamertine appeal means challenging the Mediterranean's dominant naval power. Consul Appius Claudius leads the first expeditionary force. But how to cross the strait? Romans have no warships, only commandeered fishing vessels. Carthaginian squadrons patrol the Narrows. Claudius attempts a night crossing. Dawn finds his makeshift fleet scattered, many boats captured. Yet some Romans reach Sicily. In war's strange opening, they find Carthaginians and Syracusans besieging Messana together. Through bluff and negotiation, Claudius convinces the Carthaginian commander to withdraw. Then he attacks Syracuse, forcing their retreat too. Messana is secured through audacity rather than strength. Carthage realizes this means real war. Their response seems overwhelming. 50,000 troops land in Sicily. Fleet elements blockade Italian coasts. Romans have stumbled into conflict with an empire whose resources dwarf their own. But Romans possess advantages Carthage underestimates. Their citizen soldiers fight for their own state, not pay. Their discipline comes from shared identity, not fear of officers. Most crucially, they adapt with stunning speed. The war's early years frustrate both powers. Romans win land battles, but can't force decision without naval supremacy. Carthaginians raid Italian coasts, but can't break Roman determination. Sicily becomes a grinding battlefield where neither side achieves breakthrough. Then fortune delivers a gift. A Carthaginian quinquereme runs aground on Italian shores. Romans swarm over it like ants, measuring every timber, counting every nail. Within 60 days, they've built 120 copies. Roman engineering turns one captured ship into a fleet. But Romans are no sailors. Their crews consist of farmers who've never seen blue water. In desperation, they innovate. The Corvus, a boarding bridge with iron spike, transforms naval combat. When it crashes down, locking ships together, legionaries pour across. Sea battles become land battles on wooden platforms. At Mylae in 260 BCE, the new Roman fleet meets Carthaginian squadrons. The professionals laugh at clumsy Roman seamanship until the Corvus falls. Suddenly, superior Carthaginian maneuvering means nothing. Roman soldiers massacre Carthaginian sailors in hand-to-hand combat. Victory shocks the Mediterranean world. Emboldened, Rome strikes at Carthage itself. In 256 BCE, consul Marcus Atilius Regulus lands in Africa with 15,000 troops. Initial success seems to promise quick victory. Carthage offers peace terms. Regulus demands unconditional surrender, certain that one more push will topple their empire. Carthage responds by hiring Xanthippus, a Spartan mercenary who understands disciplined infantry. He reforms their army, drills proper phalanx tactics. More importantly, he deploys war elephants effectively. At the Bagradas River, Regulus faces the synchronized advance of elephant cavalry, Greek spears, and Numidian horsemen. The Roman formation shatters. Elephants trample the center, while cavalry envelops flanks. Of 15,000 Romans, barely 2,000 escape to their ships. Regulus himself is captured. Legend says Carthage sent him to Rome proposing prisoner exchange. He advised the Senate to refuse, then returned to Carthage honoring his parole where he was tortured to death. Truth or propaganda, the story shapes Roman character. Duty transcends life. Naval disasters compound the African catastrophe. Roman fleets, grown confident, challenge nature as well as Carthage. Storm off Camarina in 255 BCE sinks 284 ships, perhaps 100,000 men drown. And another tempest in 253 BCE destroys 150 vessels. The sea proves a deadlier enemy than Carthaginian admirals. Yet Rome persists with frightening determination. New fleets rise from Italian forests. Fresh legions march from every district. Carthage, dependent on mercenaries and tribute, cannot match this depth of commitment. Their professional forces win battles, but cannot destroy Roman will. The war settles into Sicilian stalemate. Cities change hands repeatedly. Sieges drag for years. Lilybam holds against Roman assault. Panormus falls to patient investment. Both empires bleed white, maintaining forces on the island. Young Hamilcar Barca emerges as Carthage's best commander. Operating from mountain bases, he raids Roman positions for 6 years without defeat. Romans call him Barca, lightning, for his swift strikes. His son Hannibal, barely 10, learns warfare at his father's side. By 242 BCE, exhaustion grips both powers. Rome's treasury is empty, manpower strained. Carthage, always counting costs, sees no profit in continuation. But Romans attempt one final effort. Rich citizens loan money to build a new fleet. If this fails, Rome must accept defeat. Gaius Lutatius Catulus commands this last hope. He finds Carthaginian ships loading supplies for Sicily off the Aegates Islands. The Carthaginian vessels, heavy with cargo, can't maneuver properly. Roman rams splinter their hulls. The sea turns red with African blood. This defeat breaks Carthaginian resolve. Without naval supply, their Sicilian armies must surrender or starve. Peace negotiations begin. Rome demands Sicily 3,200 talents indemnity paid over 10 years. Carthage accepts, abandoning an island they've contested for 3 centuries. The First Punic War ends after 23 years. Over 500,000 men have died. Both empires stand transformed. Rome, a land power, has become a naval force. Carthage, maritime hegemon, has met its match on the waves. Sicily becomes Rome's first overseas province, a new administrative concept. Unlike Italian allies integrated into the Roman system, Sicily remains subject territory paying tribute. A praetor governs from Syracuse. The precedent of territorial empire beyond Italy is established. For Carthage, defeat brings internal crisis. Mercenaries, unpaid after Sicily's loss, revolt in the truceless war. For 3 years, Carthage fights for survival against its own hired armies. Hamilcar Barca crushes the revolt with calculated brutality, saving the state but deepening his hatred of Rome. Rome exploits Carthaginian weakness shamelessly. When mercenaries in Sardinia appeal for help, Rome seizes the island despite peace terms. Carthage, still fighting rebels, can only protest. Roman bad faith plants seeds of future conflict. Both powers draw different lessons. Romans see that persistence conquers professional skill. Their citizen armies and replacement capacity offset tactical defeats. Control of the sea opens unlimited expansion possibilities. The taste of overseas empire whets appetite for more. Carthaginians learn they cannot rely on mercenaries against motivated citizens. Their commercial empire needs military reform to survive. Hamilcar Barca has plans. If Carthage won't reform internally, he'll build a new power base. His eyes turn to Spain's silver mines and warrior tribes. Between the wars, both empires expand in different directions. Rome subdues Gallic tribes in northern Italy, pushing boundaries to the Alps. Illyrian pirates draw Roman intervention across the Adriatic. Each victory brings new frontiers requiring protection. Carthage, barred from northward expansion, drives into Spain. Hamilcar lands at Gades in 237 BCE with army and vision. He conquers tribes, founds New Carthage, Cartagena, extracts silver to rebuild Carthaginian power. Spain becomes his family's private empire. Young Hannibal grows up in armed camps. At 9, his father makes him swear eternal hatred of Rome, or so Roman historians claim. He learns multiple languages, studies Alexander's campaigns, commands troops before age 20. When Hamilcar dies fighting, Hannibal's brother-in-law Hasdrubal continues expansion. When assassins kill Hasdrubal, 25-year-old Hannibal takes command. By 220 BCE, Carthaginian Spain stretches from Gibraltar to the Ebro River. Silver flows to Carthage, funding new fleets and armies. Iberian warriors, tougher than African mercenaries, fill Barcid ranks. A new model army emerges, professional but personally loyal to its commanders. Rome watches nervously. They extract a treaty limiting Carthaginian expansion north of the Ebro. But Saguntum, a city south of that river, claims Roman alliance. When Hannibal besieges it in 219 BCE, diplomatic crisis erupts. Roman envoys travel to Carthage, demanding Hannibal's surrender. The Carthaginian Senate, riding prosperity from Spanish silver, refuses. The lead Roman envoy, Fabius, holds up a fold of his toga. "Here I carry peace and war. Choose which you prefer." The Carthaginians shout, "Give us whichever you choose." Fabius drops the fold. "Then take war." Both sides understand this conflict will differ from the first. Rome has tested overseas empire and wants more. Carthage has rebuilt military power and burns for revenge. The first war arose from accident and escalation. The second comes from deliberate choice. Hannibal has spent years planning. While Rome expects another Sicilian slugfest, he envisions something revolutionary, bringing war to Italy itself. The Alpine passes, impossible for armies, might yield to absolute determination. If he can break Roman power at its source, the Italian Confederation might dissolve. His army reflects careful preparation. Numidian cavalry provides mobility. Spanish infantry brings ferocity. African veterans ensure discipline. Balearic slingers offer missile support. War elephants add psychological impact. This isn't a mercenary rabble, but a professional force bound by shared campaigns and personal loyalty. Rome prepares traditionally. One consul will invade Spain, cutting Hannibal's base. Another will land in Africa, threatening Carthage directly. The home legions will guard Italy against any seaborne invasion. It's a sound strategy, assuming conventional warfare. But Hannibal thinks unconventionally. In spring 218 BCE, he marches from New Carthage with 90,000 infantry, 12,000 cavalry, and 37 elephants. Ahead lie hostile tribes, raging rivers, and impossible mountains. Every military manual says the Alps cannot be crossed by armies. Hannibal doesn't read those manuals. He sees what others call impossible as merely difficult. Where Romans expect safety, he'll bring terror. The Second Punic War, the Hannibalic War, is about to transform from diplomatic dispute into existential struggle. As his army marches north along the Spanish coast, few imagine this young general will bring Rome closer to destruction than any enemy before or after. The clash of titans has truly begun. In Roman homes, mothers will soon frighten children with his name. Hannibal ad portas. Hannibal is at the gates. The war to come will test every Roman virtue, challenge every assumption, and forge the Republic into something harder and more ruthless. The stakes are no longer islands and indemnities, but survival itself. Somewhere in the Alpine foothills, Hannibal studies maps and weather patterns. Winter approaches, but he pushes forward. Behind him, Spain secures his base. Ahead, Italy awaits, confident in Alpine protection. The mountains loom, snow-capped and forbidding. Hannibal orders the march to continue. The impossible is about to become history. Hannibal's vengeance snow blinds the elephants. Ice turns mountain paths into death traps. Men slip, scream, vanish into alpine chasms. It's October 218 BCE, and Hannibal drives his army through passes no military force has ever attempted. The crossing defies sanity. Hostile mountain tribes roll boulders onto narrow tracks. Soldiers freeze in their cloaks. Elephants trumpet in terror at precipices. Pack animals tumble into voids, taking precious supplies with them. Every day brings fresh nightmare. At the highest pass, Hannibal gathers his shivering troops. He points downward through clouds. There, he declares, lies Italy. We stand above Rome itself. The speech rings hollow to frostbitten men, but they push forward. After 15 days of mountain hell, they descend into the Po Valley. The cost staggers. Of 50,000 who entered the Alps, barely 26,000 emerge. Most elephants are dead, but Hannibal has achieved the impossible. He stands in northern Italy with a veteran force, while Roman armies wait in Spain and prepare for Africa. Publius Cornelius Scipio, consul heading for Spain, learns of Alpine crossing at Massilia. He can't believe reports until refugees confirm. Carthaginians are in Italy. Scipio sends his army on to Spain under his brother while he races back to face this impossible threat. At the Ticinus River, Roman and Carthaginian cavalry clash in the war's first Italian battle. Scipio expects standard skirmishing. Instead, Numidian horsemen sweep around his flanks like liquid. The consul takes a javelin through his shoulder. Only his teenage son's desperate charge saves him from capture. Young Publius Cornelius Scipio, future conqueror of Hannibal, earns his first glory saving his father. But the day belongs to Carthage. Roman cavalry flees. Italian Gauls, watching carefully, decide Hannibal might actually defeat their oppressors. Tiberius Sempronius Longus, the other consul, abandons African invasion to join his colleague. Roman doctrine demands aggressive action. Despite Scipio's warnings about Carthaginian cavalry superiority, Sempronius seeks battle. Hannibal obliges at the Tribia River in December 218 BCE. The trap unfolds perfectly. Light troops lure Romans across icy water at dawn. Legionaries emerge, freezing, soaked, unfed. Carthaginian infantry, warm and ready, holds the center. But the killing blow comes from concealment. Mago, Hannibal's brother, hidden with 2,000 picked troops, crashes into Roman rear. Massacre follows. Of 40,000 Romans, only 10,000 cut their way free. The rest die in freezing mud or drown attempting escape. Hannibal loses perhaps 1,000 men. Northern Italy witnesses Roman invincibility shattered in a morning. Gauls flock to Hannibal's banner. He promises liberation, not conquest. His propaganda brilliantly exploits Italian resentments. Why should they die for Roman glory? Celtic warriors swell his ranks, replacing Alpine losses. Spring 217 BCE brings new Roman armies under consul Gaius Flaminius. He's a populist demagogue, eager for glory, dismissive of patrician caution. When Hannibal marches toward Rome through Etruria, Flaminius pursues without proper reconnaissance. Lake Trasimene stretches misty in morning light. The road hugs its shore, hemmed by hills. Perfect ambush terrain, which Hannibal recognizes instantly. He conceals troops in wooded heights, places Gauls blocking the eastern exit, waits with African veterans at the western narrows. Flaminius marches his army along the lake in column, no scouts ahead. Suddenly trumpets blare from every hill. Carthaginians pour down like avalanche. Romans can't form battle lines on narrow shore. Panic spreads as men realize they're trapped between mountains and water. For 3 hours, slaughter continues. Flaminius dies fighting, his bodyguard overwhelmed. Some Romans attempt swimming in armor. They drown in hundreds. Others stand in water up to necks, waiting for death. When silence falls, 15,000 Romans lie dead. Hannibal loses 1,500. Rome receives news with stunned disbelief. 2 consular armies destroyed, colleague armies still in Spain and Sicily. Hannibal marches freely through Italy. The Senate appoints Quintus Fabius Maximus as dictator, emergency commander with absolute authority. Fabius understands what others miss. Hannibal's weakness is logistics. His army must forage, can't siege major cities without equipment left in the Alps. Time favors Rome if panic can be avoided. Fabius shadows Hannibal but refuses battle, earning the nickname Cunctator, delayer. The strategy frustrates everyone. Romans burn to avenge defeats. Hannibal needs decisive victory to trigger Italian defections. He ravages countryside, hoping to provoke attack. Fabius watches from hills, striking only at foraging parties. One night, Hannibal seems trapped in a valley. Fabius blocks the exit pass, but Hannibal ties torches to cattle horns, drives them up hillsides. Roman guards chase phantom army while Carthaginians slip through unguarded pass. Fabius is mocked, but continues delaying. By 216 BCE, Roman patience exhausts. New consuls Lucius Aemilius Paulus and Gaius Terentius Varro command the largest army Rome ever fielded, 80,000 infantry, 6,000 cavalry. Varro boasts he'll end war in an afternoon. At Cannae, he gets his chance. The battlefield sprears flat near the Aufidus River, perfect for Roman heavy infantry. Varro masses legions deep, planning to smash through by sheer weight. Hannibal forms convex line, Gauls and Spaniards in center bulging forward, Africans on wings held back. Battle begins with Roman pressure. The Carthaginian center bends, then breaks, falling back. Romans pour forward, convinced of victory. But Hannibal planned this retreat. As Romans compress into narrowing space, Carthaginian wings advance. The convex line becomes concave, enveloping Roman mass. Now Hasdrubal's cavalry delivers the masterpiece. After routing Roman horse, they circle the entire battlefield, striking Roman rear. Encirclement completes. 80,000 Romans are trapped in space smaller than their morning camp. What follows isn't battle, but industrial slaughter. Romans, pressed so tight they can't raise weapons, stand helpless as Carthaginians kill methodically. Hour after hour, the work continues. Dust clouds rise from stamping feet. The ground turns marsh from blood. Summer heat creates furnace of death. When darkness finally ends killing, 70,000 Romans lie dead. Hannibal loses 6,000. It's the perfect tactical victory, studied in military academies 2,000 years later. An entire Roman generation dies in 8 hours. Hannibal's officers urge immediate march on Rome. Maharbal, cavalry commander, pleads for permission to ride ahead. In 5 days, you'll dine on the Capitoline. When Hannibal hesitates, Maharbal sighs, "You know how to gain victory, Hannibal, but not how to use it." But Hannibal sees deeper. Rome's walls are strong, his siege equipment non-existent. His army, exhausted from slaughter, needs rest. Most crucially, he expects Cannae will trigger what Alpine crossing and 3 victories haven't: mass Italian defection. Surely no state could survive such catastrophe. He miscalculates Roman psychology. The Senate forbids public mourning, though every family loses members. Defeat discussions become treason. When Varro returns with survivors, they thank him for not despairing of the Republic. Unity in disaster becomes Roman strength. Some defections occur. Capua, Italy's second city, joins Hannibal. Several southern communities follow, but the core holds. Latin cities remain loyal. Central Italy stays Roman. The Confederation bends but doesn't break. Hannibal now faces strategic dilemma. He can't be everywhere. When he protects Capua, Rome threatens Tarentum. When he saves Tarentum, other allies suffer. His single army faces a hydra that sprouts new legions from seeming inexhaustible manpower. Rome adopts Fabian's strategy systematically. Multiple armies operate simultaneously, avoiding battle while pressuring Hannibal's allies. They besiege defector cities with grim patience. The war becomes endurance contest. Roman depth against Carthaginian brilliance. Years grind by. Hannibal wins every battle but can't force decision. His veterans age and die, replaced by less reliable Italians. Carthage sends minimal reinforcement, jealous politicians preferring to fund Spanish ventures. His isolation deepens yearly. Meanwhile, young Scipio, who saved his father at Ticinus and survived Cannae, emerges as Rome's answer to Hannibal. Studying Carthaginian tactics, he develops countermeasures. In Spain, he captures New Carthage through brilliant combined operations. Hannibal's base crumbles while he remains marooned in Italy. By 207 BCE, Hasdrubal finally marches from Spain with reinforcements. If he joins Hannibal, Carthaginian numbers might tip balance. But Romans intercept his messengers, learn his route. At the Metaurus River, consul Gaius Claudius Nero crushes Hasdrubal's army. They throw his severed head into Hannibal's camp, the first news he receives of his brother's arrival. Hannibal retreats to southern Italy's toe, holding out for 4 more years. But he's finished as offensive threat. When Scipio invades Africa in 204 BCE, Carthage recalls its greatest general. After 15 years in Italy, winning every battle but losing the war, Hannibal sails home. His Italian venture transforms both powers. Rome emerges harder, more unified, conscious of its resilience. The shared trauma of near destruction forges unbreakable determination. Never again will they underestimate enemies or show mercy to defeated rivals. Carthage gains nothing but confirmation of Roman implacability. Hannibal proved tactical genius can't overcome strategic depth. His very brilliance dooms Carthage by teaching Romans they must destroy, not merely defeat, such dangerous enemies. The war's final act awaits in Africa, but Italy bears scars that never fully heal. Regions Hannibal ravaged remain depopulated for generations. Small farms vanish, replaced by slave estates. The social fabric tears in ways that will manifest decades later. Most profoundly, Hannibal teaches Romans fear, not battlefield terror. They've overcome that. But existential dread that somewhere another genius might arise to threaten their survival. This fear drives expansion, demanding ever wider buffer zones, ever more complete control. Hannibal ad Portus becomes Roman nightmare for centuries. Mothers frighten children with his name. Senators justify ruthless policies by invoking his memory. The man who brought vengeance to Italy's heart ensures Rome will never feel secure while independent powers exist. His ghost haunts every Roman decision: destroy threats completely or risk another Hannibal. It's a lesson written in blood across Italian fields, paid for with an entire generation. The republic that emerges from his crucible is harder, crueler, infinitely more dangerous. The student of war has taught his enemies too well. They'll remember his lessons at Carthage's final reckoning. The Roman Phoenix. The Senate chamber falls silent. Publius Cornelius Scipio, 25 years old, stands before Rome's gray-bearded leadership. He volunteers to take command in Spain, where his father and uncle lie dead, their armies scattered. No senior commander wants this suicide mission. The young man who saved his father at Ticinus and survived Cannae now claims he can reverse catastrophe. I will avenge my father, Scipio declares, and carry war to Carthage itself. Senators mutter about youth and inexperience, but Rome has few options. They grant him proconsular authority, unprecedented for someone who hasn't held high office. Desperation overrides tradition. Spain in 210 BCE is Carthaginian stronghold. 3 Barcid armies control the peninsula. New Carthage holds vast wealth, silver mines funding Hannibal's Italian campaign. Scipio studies intelligence reports on the voyage over. The city is considered impregnable, surrounded by sea and lagoons. But Scipio has learned from Rome's greatest enemy. Like Hannibal, he thinks beyond conventional approaches. Local fishermen tell him the lagoons become wadable at low tide. While Carthaginian armies are dispersed inland, he strikes at their heart. The assault on New Carthage showcases new Roman flexibility. Scipio attacks the walls to fix attention, then sends 500 men through the lagoon at low tide. They scale undefended walls, open gates from within. The city falls in a day. Scipio captures the Carthaginian war chest, hostages from Spanish tribes, and massive supplies. His treatment of prisoners breaks Roman precedent. Instead of enslaving everyone, Scipio releases Spanish hostages, proclaiming Rome as liberator, not conqueror. He returns a beautiful captive bride to her betrothed, along with her ransom as wedding gift. Spanish tribes take notice. This Roman general fights differently. Back in Italy, Fabius Cunctator continues his grinding strategy. Now in his 70s, he besieges cities methodically. Capua, jewel of Hannibal's defectors, faces slow starvation. When Hannibal marches to relieve it, Fabius refuses distraction. When Hannibal marches on Rome itself, hoping to draw off besiegers, Fabius holds position. Hannibal reaches Rome's walls, the closest he'll ever come. Citizens manning defenses see the dreaded Carthaginians surveying their city. But reinforcements arrive. The ground where Hannibal camps goes up for public auction. It sells for full price, displaying Roman confidence. Without siege equipment, Hannibal withdraws. Capua falls soon after. Roman vengeance on Capua shocks Italy. Leading citizens are executed. The rest are scattered, enslaved, their property confiscated. The city becomes object lesson. This fate awaits defectors. Other wavering cities note the message and remain loyal. Marcus Claudius Marcellus, Sword of Rome, besieges Syracuse for 2 years. The genius Archimedes designs defensive machinery, cranes that grab ships, mirrors that burn sails. But persistence conquers brilliance. When the city finally falls, Marcellus orders Archimedes spared. A soldier kills him anyway, finding the mathematician drawing geometric figures too absorbed to surrender properly. In Spain, Scipio systematically destroys Carthaginian power. At Becula, he pins the enemy center while sending forces through supposedly impassable terrain to flank them. At Ilipa, he reverses normal deployment, putting Romans on wings instead of center, confusing Carthaginian response. Each victory shows mastery of Hannibalic tactics turned against their creators. By 206 BCE, Spain belongs to Rome. Scipio returns home, advocating invasion of Africa. Conservative senators resist. Hannibal still lurks in Italy. But Scipio argues brilliantly. Attack Carthage directly, force them to recall Hannibal, make them defend their homeland as Rome has defended Italy. The Senate grudgingly approves but provides minimal support. Scipio raises volunteers, many survivors of Cannae seeking redemption. In 204 BCE, he lands in Africa with 35,000 men. Carthage panics as war reaches their doorstep for the first time. Initial success comes quickly. Scipio allies with Massinissa, Numidian prince wronged by Carthage. His cavalry gives Romans the mobility advantage Hannibal long enjoyed. Together, they destroy 2 Carthaginian armies, burn camps containing 40,000 troops. Carthage sues for peace, but negotiations serve only to buy time for Hannibal's recall. The greatest Carthaginian general lands at Hadrumetum with his Italian veterans, the first time in 16 years he's stood on African soil. Both sides understand the final confrontation approaches. Before Zama, Hannibal requests personal meeting with Scipio. 2 military geniuses, shaped by decades of war, face each other. Hannibal, now 45, bears the weight of impossible burdens. Scipio, 33, radiates confidence of ascending power. They speak respectfully, each recognizing the other's quality. Hannibal offers terms. Carthage keeps Africa, abandons all overseas possessions. I, who once stood at your gates, now sue for peace, he admits. Fortune's wheel turns for all men. Accept victory while you can. Scipio refuses. Too much blood has flowed. Rome demands unconditional submission. Both generals know battle must decide. They part cordially, returning to prepare their armies for apocalyptic clash. At Zama in 202 BCE, roles reverse from Cannae. Scipio commands superior cavalry through Massinissa's Numidians. Hannibal, forced to rely on raw recruits and elephants, lacks his usual flexibility. The battle begins with Hannibal's 80 elephants charging Roman lines. But Scipio has prepared. Lanes open in Roman formation, allowing elephants to pass through harmlessly, while Velites attack with javelins. Maddened beasts rampage back through Carthaginian lines. The elephant charge, meant to shatter Roman morale, achieves nothing but chaos. Infantry combat grinds brutally. Hannibal's veterans fighting their last battle match Roman ferocity. Lines lock in deadly equilibrium. But Massinissa's cavalry, having driven off Carthaginian horse, returns to strike Hannibal's rear, exactly the maneuver Hannibal used at Cannae. Encirclement completes. Carthaginians fight with desperate courage but face annihilation. 20,000 die, equal numbers are captured. Hannibal escapes with handful of cavalry, knowing the war is lost. In bitter irony, he's defeated by his own tactics perfected by Roman student. Carthage accepts crushing terms. They surrender Spain, all Mediterranean islands, their war fleet except 10 ships. 50-year indemnity of 10,000 talents begins. They cannot wage war without Roman permission, reducing proud Carthage to client state. Hannibal himself remains free. Scipio respects him too much to demand his person. Victory transforms Rome profoundly. They've survived existential threat and emerged dominant. No Mediterranean power can match their resources, determination, or military evolution. The republic that nearly died at Cannae now arbitrates the ancient world's fate. But victory's fruits prove complex. Vast wealth flows from conquered territories. Spanish silver enriches state coffers. Enslaved prisoners flood Italian markets. Traditional citizen farmers, backbone of Roman virtue, can't compete with slave-worked estates. The social order that produced victory begins dissolving in success. Scipio receives the agnomen Africanus, first Roman general honored with conquered territories' name. Yet political enemies attack him for Eastern affectations, Greek culture, personal magnificence. The man who saved Rome finds himself defending against corruption charges. He retires bitter, requesting burial far from ungrateful Rome. Hannibal attempts rebuilding Carthage through political reform. His efficiency threatens entrenched interests. They denounce him to Rome as planning new war. In 1905 BCE, Roman commissioners arrive demanding his surrender. Hannibal flees into exile, beginning wanderings that take him across the Mediterranean. He serves Antiochus of Syria against Rome, losing again. He advises Bithynia on naval warfare, supposedly using pots of poisonous snakes as weapons. But Romans track him relentlessly. In 1803 BCE, surrounded in Bithynian villa, Hannibal takes poison rather than face capture. "Let us relieve the Romans of their anxiety," he says, dying as he lived, undefeated in spirit. The Second Punic Wars conclusion reshapes the Mediterranean irreversibly. Rome emerges not just victorious, but transformed into imperial power. The defensive republic becomes aggressive empire. Having learned fear from Hannibal, they'll never allow such threats to emerge again. Carthage survives, but as broken power. Their empire is gone, pride shattered. They'll spend 50 years paying indemnity, watching Roman power grow exponentially. Some Carthaginians dream of revenge. Most simply try rebuilding commercial prosperity within Roman-imposed constraints. The war's human cost defies calculation. Perhaps 300,000 Romans died. Carthaginian losses were comparable. Italian countryside bears generational scars. Entire regions remain depopulated. Social structures that took centuries building lie shattered. Victory tastes of ash in too many mouths. Yet Rome has answered history's great test. Faced with military genius and near annihilation, they discovered reserves of determination that surprised even themselves. The phoenix metaphor fits. They've risen from Cannae's ashes, stronger, harder, infinitely more dangerous. The Republic will face new challenges: Hellenistic kingdoms, social upheaval, civil wars, but nothing will match the existential terror of Hannibal at the gates. Having survived that crucible, Romans believe themselves capable of anything. They're probably right. In the Forum, Scipio Africanus dedicates spoils of victory. The ceremony mixes triumph with exhaustion. Rome has won its greatest war through transforming everything it once was. The simple republic of citizen farmers is dying, replaced by something grander and more terrible. The transformation is irreversible. Rome has tasted world power and found it intoxicating. The defensive republic that fought for survival now looks outward with imperial appetite. Having crushed their greatest enemy, they'll seek new worlds to conquer. Somewhere in eastern exile, Hannibal perhaps smiles bitterly. He failed to destroy Rome, but succeeded in transforming it into something Romulus wouldn't recognize. The city that survived his vengeance will inflict its own upon the world. The Roman phoenix has risen. What it will become, none yet imagine. The end of Carthage and the Eastern turn. Marcus Porcius Cato ends every Senate speech the same way. Whether discussing aqueduct repairs or grain distribution, he concludes, Carthago delenda est. Carthage must be destroyed. The old senator, veteran of the Hannibalic War, pulls fresh figs from his toga. These grew in Carthage 3 days ago, he warns. The enemy is that close. It's 150 BCE, and Carthage has recovered remarkably. Freed from military expenses by Roman-imposed restrictions, they've poured energy into commerce. Their merchants once again dominate Mediterranean trade. The indemnity from the last war, paid off early, demonstrated financial power that makes Rome nervous. The excuse for war comes through Massinissa, Rome's Numidian ally. Now 90 years old, he spent decades nibbling at Carthaginian territory. When Carthage finally responds militarily, they technically violate peace terms forbidding warfare without Roman permission. Rome has its pretext. The Senate dispatches commissioners to investigate. Carthage offers complete submission. They'll pay any indemnity, surrender hostages, accept any terms. They want peace at any price. But Rome's terms prove impossible to accept. Abandon the city, resettle 10 miles inland. For a maritime people, this means death. The Carthaginians realize Rome seeks not submission, but annihilation. If they must die, they'll die fighting. The city that avoided military spending for 50 years now mobilizes with desperate efficiency. Women cut their hair for catapult strings. Temples melt sacred vessels for weapons. Slaves receive freedom in exchange for service. Daily production reaches 300 swords, 500 spears, 140 shields. The harbor workshops build new fleet from nothing. Carthage transforms into arsenal of democracy's last stand. The Roman siege begins confidently in 149 BCE. Consul Manius Manilius expects quick victory against merchants playing soldier. Instead, he finds walls 30 feet high, triple layered, with towers every 200 feet. Carthaginian sallies burn Roman siege works. Disease ravages camps in North African heat. Young Scipio Aemilianus distinguishes himself. Adopted grandson of Africanus, he's inherited military genius along with the name. When elephants panic Roman cavalry, he rallies them. When discipline collapses, he restores order. Soldiers start looking to him rather than incompetent consuls. In 47 BCE, though technically too young, Scipio receives consulship and African command. He transforms the siege with methodical efficiency. A massive mole blocks the harbor. When Carthaginians cut new channel overnight, he closes that too. Systematic pressure replaces fitful assaults. Spring 46 BCE brings final assault. Romans breach harbor defenses, fighting through commercial district. Every house becomes fortress. Carthaginians fight from rooftops, hurling tiles and stones. Women pour boiling oil from windows. Children throw javelins. The urban warfare surpasses Italian campaigns in savagery. The battle moves uphill toward the Bursa, Carthage's citadel. 6-story buildings line narrow streets. Romans must clear each floor, room by room. Scipio orders the buildings burned, then demolished. Engineers use hooks to pull down burning structures, creating fire breaks and assault paths. For 6 days and nights, slaughter continues without pause. Bodies fill streets so deeply that work parties must clear paths for advancing troops. The screaming never stops. Wounded, buried under rubble, families burning alive, soldiers dying in close-quarter combat. Hell manifests on earth. Finally, 50,000 survivors crowd the Bursa citadel. They offer surrender. Scipio accepts. They'll live as slaves. But Hasdrubal, the Carthaginian commander, refuses personal surrender. His wife appears on the temple roof with their children. She curses his cowardice, then leaps into flames with her sons. Hasdrubal begs Roman mercy anyway, living as example of dishonor. Scipio watches the burning city with unexpected melancholy. His Greek tutor Polybius records him quoting Homer, "The day will come when sacred Troy will perish." Asked why he weeps at enemies' destruction, Scipio responds, "I fear for Rome's future fate." The destruction is total. Fires burn for 17 days. Scipio receives orders making example for all time. Surviving buildings are methodically demolished. Legend claims ground was sown with salt, though this seems impractical. More likely, religious curses ensure the site remains uninhabited. Of perhaps 500,000 inhabitants, 50,000 survive as slaves. Carthaginian territory becomes Africa province. Punic language and culture, heirs to Phoenician civilization stretching back millennia, face systematic erasure. Libraries burn or ship to Numidian kings, even memory faces execution. In the same year, 146 BCE, Rome destroys Corinth in Greece. The synchronicity seems divinely ordained. East and West, Greek culture and Punic commerce both fall to Roman power. The message resonates. Resistance brings annihilation. The Eastern complications began decades earlier. While fighting Hannibal, Philip V of Macedon allied with Carthage. Rome couldn't respond immediately, but remembered. After Zama, they turned east with scores to settle. The Macedonian phalanx had dominated warfare since Alexander. 16-foot sarissas created impenetrable hedge of spear points. But at Cynocephaly in 1907 BCE, legions proved phalanx obsolete. On broken ground, Roman manipular flexibility shattered Macedonian rigidity. Philip accepted humiliating terms. Macedon survived, but defanged. Greece's liberation from Macedon produced jubilation. At the Isthmian Games of 1906 BCE, Herald Titus Quincius Flamininus proclaimed all Greeks free. The cheering supposedly knocked birds from the sky. Greeks hailed Romans as liberators. Not understanding Roman freedom meant replacing Macedonian hegemony with Roman oversight. Antiochus III of Syria, Alexander's most powerful successor, thought Rome overextended. He accepted Hannibal as advisor and invaded Greece. At Thermopylae in 991 BCE, where Spartans once held Persians, Romans demonstrated tactical superiority. Antiochus fled to Asia. The decisive battle at Magnesia in 990 BCE showed Eastern armies couldn't match Roman discipline. Antiochus fielded 70,000 troops, including armored cavalry, scythe chariots, and war elephants. Romans with Greek allies numbered 30,000. The clash became rout. Legionary steadiness trumped Hellenistic variety. Antiochus paid crushing indemnity, 15,000 talents over 12 years. Asia Minor opened to Roman influence. Client kingdoms replaced great powers. The pattern established, Rome need not occupy to control. Threat of legions ensured compliance. Perseus, Philip's son, attempted restoring Macedonian power. The Third Macedonian War ended at Pydna in 68 BCE. Consul Lucius Aemilius Paulus executed perfect battle. Eclipse panicked superstitious Macedonians, while Romans, forewarned by astronomy, attacked confidently. The phalanx died forever. Macedon was divided into 4 republics, forbidden mutual contact. But client states proved troublesome. Constant interventions drained resources. After another Macedonian revolt, Rome abandoned indirect rule. In 148 BCE, Macedon became a province. Direct administration replaced diplomatic manipulation. Greece's turn came through Achaean League defiance. They challenged Roman authority once too often. After military defeat, example was required. Corinth, Greece's commercial jewel, faced Carthage's fate. Lucius Mummius methodically destroyed the ancient city. Art treasures shipped to Rome, population enslaved. Greece became appendage of Macedonian province. The year 146 BCE marks watershed, 2 ancient civilizations erased. Direct rule replaces hegemony. The republic designed for city-state governance now administers intercontinental empire. Institutions strain under unprecedented responsibilities. Wealth floods Rome. Carthaginian gold, Corinthian art, Eastern luxuries transform society. Greek slaves tutor Roman children. Philosophy and rhetoric challenge traditional values. The simple republic of farmers becomes cosmopolitan empire of infinite complexity. Veterans return speaking Greek, worshiping Eastern gods, demanding land grants. Traditional family structures collapse as men spend decades overseas. Women manage properties, wielding unprecedented economic power. Everything solid melts into air. The destruction of Carthage and Corinth sends unmistakable message. Rome offers 2 choices: submit completely or face annihilation. No middle ground exists. The republic that began defending itself now destroys entire civilizations, pour encourage les autres, yet victory corrodes victors. Scipio Aemilianus, destroyer of Carthage, leads conservative resistance to Greek influence. But his own education, friendships, and interests mark him as Hellenized intellectual. The contradiction torments Roman elite. They rule what they fear becoming. Provincial wealth creates new economics. Tax farming enriches publicani corporations. Governors extract fortunes through gifts and requisitions. Senate membership becomes pathway to Eastern wealth. Public service transforms into private enrichment opportunity. Most fatefully, military service changes. Year-long campaigns become decade-long occupations. Citizen farmers can't abandon fields indefinitely. Recruitment draws from landless poor, soldiers serving for pay rather than civic duty. Loyalty shifts from state to general. The army that saved Rome from Hannibal evolves into instrument of civil war. By 140 BCE, Rome dominates the Mediterranean. From Spanish Atlantic to Syrian borders, no power challenges Roman supremacy. The defensive republic has become aggressive empire. Success breeds arrogance. Arrogance breeds corruption. Corruption breeds the crises ahead. Cato the Elder dies before seeing Carthage's destruction, but his dream manifests. The enemy is eliminated. Rome stands supreme. Yet Scipio's tears at Carthage prove prophetic. In destroying external enemies, Rome begins destroying itself. The Eastern turn brings philosophy, art, literature, and decay. The Carthaginian solution demonstrates power without wisdom. Having learned to conquer, Rome must learn to govern. Having destroyed rivals, it must avoid self-destruction. But that education lies ahead, written in Roman blood across Roman streets. For now, triumph's intoxication drowns wisdom's whispers. The Republic stands atop the ancient world, master of all its surveys. Carthage's harbors fill with rubble. Corinth's workshops stand empty. The Mediterranean becomes Roman lake. And somewhere in Senate archives, Cato's repeated warning echoes ironically. Carthage is destroyed. What now? The fracturing republic. The triumph parade winds through Roman streets displaying Pergamene treasures. Gold flows like water, slaves march in chains, incense fills the air. It's 132 BCE and Rome has just inherited the kingdom of Pergamon. Its king died childless, willing his realm to the Roman people. Unimaginable wealth pours into the treasury. In the crowd, a young tribune watches with burning eyes. Tiberius Sempronius Gracchus sees not celebration but catastrophe. While senators feast and citizens cheer, he counts the missing faces. Farmers who once filled these streets now vanished like morning mist. The crisis has built for decades. Hannibal's devastation, followed by constant warfare, has shattered traditional agriculture. Small farmers can't compete with slave-worked estates called latifundia. Conscripted for years-long campaigns, citizens return to find lands sold for debt. The backbone of Roman virtue, independent farmer soldiers, dissolves into landless urban mass. The census tells the grim story. Citizens qualifying for military service through property ownership decline each decade. Soon, Rome won't field armies from its own population. Meanwhile, senators accumulate vast estates through dubious means. Public land meant for distribution gets absorbed into private holdings. The rich grow richer on empire's spoils, while citizens who won that empire sink into poverty. Tiberius Gracchus knows these statistics intimately. Grandson of Scipio Africanus, educated in Greek philosophy, he combines aristocratic privilege with genuine reform passion. His military service in Spain showed him the crisis firsthand. Recruiting officers can barely find eligible soldiers among propertyless masses. Taking office as tribune in 133 BCE, Tiberius proposes revolutionary solution. The Lex Sempronia would enforce ancient laws limiting individual holdings of public land to 500 aegera. Excess land would be redistributed to landless citizens in small plots. A permanent commission would oversee distribution, funded by Pergamene treasure. The Senate erupts. Many senators hold thousands of aegera illegally. Redistribution threatens their wealth, power, and agricultural investments. Marcus Octavius, fellow tribune clearly bought by senatorial interests, vetoes the proposal. Roman constitution assumes collegiality. One tribune can block another indefinitely. But Tiberius breaks precedent. He argues that Octavius, opposing the people's interests, has violated his office's sacred nature. In unprecedented move, Tiberius calls assembly to depose Octavius. Citizens vote removal. The bill passes immediately after. Victory seems complete. Land Commission begins work, surveying holdings, registering citizens. Thousands apply for plots. Rural Italy might regenerate, but Tiberius has shattered constitutional tradition. If tribunes can remove each other, if popular assemblies override all restraints, where do limits lie? Senators plot response. When Tiberius seeks re-election, another unprecedented act, as tribunes serve single years, they claim he seeks tyranny. On election day, senatorial partisans gather on the Capitoline. Pontifex Maximus Scipio Nasica leads the charge, shouting that the Republic faces mortal threat. The confrontation explodes into violence. Senators and their clients attack Tiberius's supporters with broken benches and staves. Tiberius himself flees toward the temple, but trips on his toga. Senators beat him to death with chair legs. His body, along with 300 supporters, gets thrown into the Tiber like common criminals. For the first time in the Republic's history, political dispute has ended in mass murder. The tribunate's sacrosanct status lies broken. Citizens have killed citizens in the forum. Blood has entered politics, never to fully drain away. 10 years pass in uneasy quiet. The Land Commission continues working but faces constant obstruction. Then Gaius Gracchus, Tiberius's younger brother, wins tribuneship in 123 BCE. More brilliant than his brother learning from his mistakes, Gaius unleashes comprehensive reform program. His legislation transforms everything. The Lex Frumentaria provides subsidized grain to urban masses, bread to quiet unrest. Public works projects employ the jobless. Colonies resettle landless citizens. Military reforms provide equipment at state expense. Each law builds popular support while addressing real problems. Most cleverly, Gaius splits the opposition. His jury reform transfers court membership from senators to wealthy equites, the merchant class. Now businessmen judge senatorial corruption. The equites, enriched by empire but excluded from power, become Gaius's allies against traditional aristocracy. But Gaius's proposal to extend citizenship to Latin allies proves too radical. Romans won't share their privileges even with peoples who fought beside them for centuries. When Gaius seeks third term as tribune, opposition mobilizes. Consul Lucius Opimius declares state emergency, first use of senatus consultum ultimum, decree authorizing any measures to protect the state. Violence erupts on the Aventine Hill. Gaius and 3,000 supporters face consular forces. Unlike his brother, Gaius comes armed, knowing what awaits. But disciplined troops overwhelm civilian supporters. Gaius orders a slave to kill him rather than face capture. The slave complies, then kills himself. Opimius's repression surpasses previous bloodshed. 3,000 Gracchus supporters die in combat or execution. Rewards offered for severed heads lead to grotesque scenes. One man fills Gaius's skull with lead to increase weight and reward. Properties are confiscated, bodies denied burial. State terror enters Roman politics, yet the Gracchi's legacy endures beyond their deaths. They've shown that popular assemblies can challenge Senate dominance. Tribunes can mobilize masses against establishment. Land distribution, grain subsidies, and public works become standard political tools. Most importantly, they've revealed the Republic's fundamental fracture between those enriched by empire and citizens impoverished by it. The violence also transforms politics. Senators learn that emergency decrees justify murder. Populares learn that reform risks death. Both sides abandon constitutional restraint for naked force. The spiral towards civil war accelerates with each confrontation. Economic pressures intensify despite repression. Slave rebellions multiply as human chattel floods Italy. The social question, what to do with impoverished citizens, defies solution. Veterans demand land rewards. Allies demand citizenship. Provincial subjects demand justice. Each group finds champions willing to risk Gracchus fate. The Senate tries conservative solutions. Colonization sends poor citizens to distant provinces. Military recruitment draws from capitacensi, the head count, propertyless masses. Traditional values get proclaimed while traditional society dissolves. Cato the Elder's austere ideals ring hollow in marble palaces built with provincial plunder. New men rise through chaos. Gaius Marius, Italian from Arpinum, builds military reputation fighting in Africa. Lacking aristocratic ancestors, he cultivates popular support. His consulship victories against Jugurtha and Germanic invasions make him people's champion. He recruits from the landless, promising plots after service. The army becomes path to property for the dispossessed. But Marius's reforms accelerate dangerous trends. Professional soldiers loyal to generals replace citizen militia loyal to state. Veterans expecting land create pressure for conquest. Successful generals command personal armies. The tools for civil war multiply while constitutional restraints weaken. Intellectual life reflects social dissolution. Greek philosophy offers Stoic endurance or Epicurean withdrawal. Traditional religion becomes empty ritual, while Eastern mystery cults promise personal salvation. Literature divides between nostalgic moralizing and sophisticated cynicism. No coherent vision unites fragmenting society. Women's positions shift amid chaos. Elite women manage vast properties while husbands govern provinces. Divorce becomes common as marriages serve political alliances. Traditional female virtues of modesty and domesticity clash with economic power and social freedom. Cornelia, mother of the Gracchi, exemplifies contradictions, celebrated for maternal virtue while wielding enormous political influence. By 100 BCE, the Republic has fractured beyond simple repair. Senate and people, rich and poor, Romans and Italians, soldiers and civilians, each group pursues separate interests. The constitution designed for city-state cannot govern world empire. Institutions stretch, crack, and increasingly rely on force over law. The Gracchi tried saving the Republic by reforming it. Their deaths proved that entrenched interests prefer gradual dissolution to rapid change. Every subsequent reformer faces their choice, abandon efforts or risk their fate. Most choose preservation over principle, yet pressure builds toward explosion. Each murdered tribune, each violated precedent, each use of emergency powers weakens Republican restraints. Men dream of using Graccan methods for personal power rather than public good. Armies wait for generals bold enough to cross constitutional boundaries. The Republic survives, but as shadow of itself. Form persists while substance drains. Senators perform ancient rituals in chambers where colleagues were murdered. Citizens vote in assemblies overshadowed by armed gangs. Consuls command armies more loyal to them than Rome. The fracturing is complete, awaiting only the blow to shatter fragments entirely. That blow approaches in forms of Marius and Sulla, Pompey and Caesar. But the Gracchi struck first crack. In trying to save the Republic, they began its destruction. Their tragedy echoes through history. Reform or revolution, law or justice, order or equity, they chose justice and died for it. Their killers chose order and doomed it. Between such choices, republics die. The Pergamene gold that sparked Tiberius's reform still flows through Roman coffers. But no amount of treasure can purchase what's been lost. The citizen solidarity that built the empire. The republic that conquered the world cannot conquer its own contradictions. In the forum where the Gracchi died, business continues. Merchants trade, lawyers argue, politicians scheme, but shadows lengthen across ancient stones. The fractures run too deep for surface repairs. The Republic endures, but as patient awaiting inevitable terminal diagnosis. Time remains for heroes and villains, triumphs and disasters. But the breaking has begun. What the Gracchi started, only Caesars can finish. The Marian reforms and the social war. The Germanic horde streams across the frozen Rhine, 300,000 strong. Warriors, women, children, cattle, an entire civilization in motion. Roman scouts report impossible numbers, the Cimbri, Teutones, and Ambrones, driven from northern homes by flooding seas, searching for new lands. They've already destroyed 2 consular armies. Rome faces its worst threat since Hannibal. In the Senate, panic spreads like plague. Traditional recruitment has failed. Property qualifications exclude most citizens from service. The legions that conquered Carthage no longer exist. Desperate times demand desperate measures. They turn to Gaius Marius, the Italian Novus Homo, who's just finished crushing King Jugurtha in Africa. Marius knows the crisis runs deeper than Germanic invasions. The citizen soldier ideal has died with the disappearance of small farmers. Rome needs professional armies but clings to amateur traditions. Elected consul for 104 BCE, his second term, Marius implements revolutionary changes. The property requirement for military service vanishes with a pen stroke. Now the capita censi, the head count, men owning nothing but themselves, can enlist. The landless masses who've crowded Rome since the Gracchi finally have purpose. Recruitment offices overflow with volunteers seeking steady pay and eventual land grants. But Marius goes further. These new soldiers need extensive training to match Germanic ferocity. He drills them relentlessly, route marches in full gear, weapons practice until exhaustion, engineering works to occupy idle hands. Every soldier carries construction tools along with weapons. Marius's mules, they're called, bearing all equipment on their backs. The legion itself transforms. Instead of temporary levies, these are semi-permanent units with fixed numbers and identity. Each legion receives silver eagle standards, sacred symbols worth dying to protect. Cohort organization replaces manipular system, creating more flexible tactical units. Professional centurions provide institutional memory. Most crucially, soldiers swear personal oaths to their general, not abstract state allegiance. Marius promises land after service, something the Senate has repeatedly failed to deliver for previous veterans. The army becomes path to property for the propertyless, but loyalty follows the general who ensures rewards. While Marius trains his new model army, Germanic tribes ravage Gaul and probe Alpine passes. They offer Rome peace in exchange for settlement lands. The Senate refuses. Barbarians don't dictate terms to Rome. The tribes split up, planning synchronized invasion of Italy from different directions. At Aquae Sextiae in 102 BCE, Marius intercepts the Teutones and Ambrones. His disciplined professionals face screaming barbarians in Mediterranean heat. Germanic fury breaks against Roman shields. When barbarians exhaust themselves, fresh cohorts rotate forward. The slaughter is methodical, 100,000 enemies dead or captured. The Cimbri penetrate Italy through eastern passes. Marius races to intercept them at Vercellae in 101 BCE. This time, he uses dust clouds and sun positioning to blind enemies. When battle lines clash, Roman discipline again proves superior. The Cimbri cease to exist as a people. Germanic threats evaporate like morning mist. Marius returns to Rome as savior, elected consul, an unprecedented 6 times, but his reforms have unleashed forces beyond his control. Every successful general now commands personally loyal armies. Veterans expect land rewards that require new conquests or confiscations. The military solution creates political problems. Meanwhile, Italian allies watch with growing resentment. They fought in every Roman war, bled for Roman glory, yet remain excluded from citizenship's benefits. Latin communities enjoy halfway status, but most Italians face taxation and conscription without representation. The Gracchi's proposal to extend citizenship died with them, but allied frustration only grows. Marcus Livius Drusus becomes tribune in 91 BCE, proposing comprehensive reforms including Italian citizenship. Like the Gracchi, he combines genuine idealism with political calculation, but his assassination triggers Allied explosion. If Rome won't grant citizenship peacefully, Italians will claim it through force. The social war erupts across Italy. Social means allied. Rome faces rebellion by its own confederation. Italian communities coordinate resistance, establishing rival capital at Corfinium, renamed Italia. They mint coins showing Italian bull-goring Roman wolf. Veterans trained in Roman tactics now fight against Rome. The war's savagery shocks everyone. These aren't foreign enemies, but former brothers in arms. At Asculum, Pompey Strabo besieges rebels who include men he's commanded in previous campaigns. When the city falls, punishment is vicious. Mass executions, total enslavement. Civil war's special hatred manifests. Roman advantages in organization initially falter against enemies who know their every tactic. Italian commanders like Papius Mutilus and Pontius Telesinus prove equal to Roman generals. The confederation that conquered the Mediterranean faces dissolution from within. Young commanders distinguish themselves in desperate fighting. Lucius Cornelius Sulla storms Stabiae. Pompey Strabo's son, future Pompey the Great, shows precocious military talent. Marius, now aged, struggles against former allies who learned war under his command. But Rome's deeper resources tell. More importantly, political flexibility returns. The Lex Julia of 90 BCE grants citizenship to all Italians who haven't revolted or who lay down arms. The Lex Plaudia Papiria extends this to individuals within rebel communities. Rome wins by conceding the war's central demand. By 88 BCE, fighting sputters out. Italia dissolves as communities accept Roman citizenship. The peninsula is politically unified for the first time, but victory's cost runs deep, perhaps 300,000 dead on both sides. Former allies nurse grievances that will resurface in future civil wars. The war's end brings new crisis. Mithridates VI of Pontus has massacred 80,000 Romans in Asia, exploiting Italian distraction. Command against him promises glory and wealth. Both Marius and Sulla claim the appointment through political manipulation. Sulla, consul for 88 BCE, receives Senate authorization, but Marius uses tribune Publius Sulpicius to transfer command through popular assembly. For the first time, political dispute threatens military solution. Sulla faces choice: accept political defeat or use his legions. He chooses revolutionary path. Marching 6 legions to Rome, Sulla becomes first Roman general to attack his own city. Most officers refuse participation, but common soldiers follow. They're loyal to Sulla, not constitutional niceties. Rome falls without serious resistance. Marius flees to Africa. Sulpicius dies in street fighting. Sulla passes laws strengthening Senate, weakening tribunate. But he can't stay. Mithridates requires attention. Sulla marches east, leaving Rome to inevitable counter-revolution. Marius returns with vengeful fury. Elected to 7th consulship, he unleashes reign of terror. Former enemies die without trial. Heads decorate the forum. Slaves receive freedom for murdering masters. The man who saved Rome from Germanic hordes becomes its nightmare. But Marius dies weeks into his consulship, perhaps from stroke. His supporter Cinna continues purges while Sulla campaigns in the east. Rome divides between Marian populares and Sullan optimates. The Republic splits into armed camps awaiting final reckoning. The Marian reforms have succeeded too well. Professional armies loyal to generals replace citizen militias loyal to state. Italian unification through social war creates vast manpower reserves for civil conflicts. Military solutions to political problems become normalized. The tools for Republic's destruction are forged, yet necessity drove each change. Rome couldn't face Germanic invasions with obsolete militias. Italian allies deserved citizenship after centuries of loyalty. Professional armies require professional rewards. Each reform addressed real crises, but created new ones. The transformation runs deeper than institutional change. Roman identity itself shifts from narrow city-state citizenship to Italian-wide nationality. The army evolves from civic duty to career path. Loyalty becomes personal rather than institutional. Traditional restraints dissolve in reform's acid. By 87 BCE, the Republic has entered death spiral. Marian veterans await rewards. Sullan legions prepare return from eastern victories. Both sides claim legitimacy while planning opponents' destruction. Constitutional government exists only as facade for military power. The stage sets for Sulla's return and second march on Rome. This time, no restraint will temper victory. Prescription lists will formalize political murder. Dictatorship will attempt conservative revolution. The Republic will bleed while learning that professional armies serve whoever pays them. Marius lies in his tomb, spared witnessing his reform's ultimate logic. He created the instrument professional legions without controlling their use. Every subsequent strongman will employ Marian-trained armies for personal power. The Germanic invaders are defeated, but the Republic is doomed. In the Forum, citizens go about daily business, adjusting to new realities. Yesterday's allies are today's fellow citizens. Yesterday's protectors might be tomorrow's oppressors. The solid certainties of the old Republic have melted into air. Change has come too fast, too fundamentally. The Marian reforms saved Rome from external destruction while ensuring internal dissolution. The social war created unified Italy at republicanism's expense. Solutions have become problems, medicines have become poisons. The Germanic threat is memory. Italian peninsula stands united. Professional legions guard expanded frontiers. By every measure, Rome is stronger than ever. Yet the Republic that achieved these triumphs gasps its last breaths. Soon, Sulla will return, bringing Eastern treasures and hardened veterans. Blood will flow in Roman streets as never before. The professional armies Marius created will determine politics through sword rather than ballot. The social war's veterans will choose sides in civil conflicts. Reform has succeeded. Revolution approaches. The Republic struggles between transformation and tradition, unable to embrace either fully. In this twilight, monsters breed. Marius's mules march on, following eagles toward destinations their creator never intended. Sulla's bloody precedent. The prescription lists appear at dawn, nailed to the rostra in the Forum. Citizens crowd forward, scanning for their names among the condemned. Those who find themselves listed turn pale, knowing they have hours, perhaps minutes, before hunters arrive. It's 82 BCE, and Lucius Cornelius Sulla has introduced state-sanctioned murder to Roman politics. The lists are masterfully cruel. Not only do they mark men for death, but they offer rewards for killers, 2 talents per head. Slaves who betray masters receive freedom. Sons who inform on fathers gain inheritance. The condemned lose all legal protection. Anyone sheltering them faces death. Their property becomes state auction, enriching Sulla's supporters. How did Rome reach this nadir? The path began when Sulla marched on Rome the first time, then left for the east to fight Mithridates. His absence allowed Marius and Cinna to seize power, conducting their own purges. When Marius died, Cinna ruled through terror for 3 years, declaring Sulla public enemy. But Sulla thrived in the east. He crushed Mithridates, looted Greek treasures, and forged his legions into personally devoted instruments. Asia's wealth funded loyalty. Each soldier received 16,000 sesterces, officers proportionally more. When Sulla prepared return, his men knew their fortunes depended on his victory. The government in Rome scrambled defenses. They raised armies from Marian veterans and newly enfranchised Italians. Young Gnaeus Pompey raised 3 legions from his father's clients, then shocked everyone by marching them to Sulla. The ambitious youth calculated correctly, Sulla would win, and early supporters would profit immensely. Sulla landed at Brundisium in 83 BCE with 40,000 veterans. The civil war that followed surpassed previous conflicts in methodical brutality. At the Colline Gate, Rome's final battle, 50,000 Samnite allies of the Marian faction died fighting. Sulla ordered 8,000 prisoners executed in the Campus Martius. Their screams carried to the Senate House, where Sulla addressed terrified senators, casually noting he was merely chastising some criminals. Victory complete, Sulla revived the ancient office of dictator, unused for 120 years. But unlike traditional 6-month emergency appointments, Sulla's dictatorship had no term limit. He held power for the reform of the constitution, duration determined solely by his will. The republic effectively ceased to exist. The proscriptions began immediately. First 80 names appeared, then 220 more, eventually reaching 520 senators and 1,600 eques. But lists grew daily as Sulla's supporters added personal enemies or coveted someone's property. Men died for owning desirable villas or attractive wives. The forum's businessmen learned that wealth without protection meant death warrant. Young Marcus Crassus exemplified the system's perversion. He bought proscribed property at fractions of value, accumulating vast fortune from others' misfortune. When he added names merely to seize estates, even Sulla remarked on his greed. But the dictator needed supporters' loyalty more than abstract justice. The killing mechanism operated with bureaucratic efficiency. Professional bounty hunters emerged, specialists in tracking proscribed men. They haunted ports, watched roads, infiltrated households. Some victims fled to provinces. Hunters followed. Others sought sanctuary in temples. Sacred spaces were violated. The entire Mediterranean became hunting ground. Personal tragedies multiplied infinitely. Quintus Aurelius thought himself safe, apolitical, wealthy but not ostentatious. Walking through the forum, he idly checked new postings. Finding his name, he muttered, "My Alban estate has informed against me." 20 steps later, hunters cut him down. Yet Sulla claimed moral purpose. He was saving the Republic from demagogues, restoring Senate supremacy, preventing future Marii. His constitutional reforms reflected conservative revolution. Tribunes lost legislative initiative. Jury courts returned to senatorial control. Provincial commands required Senate approval. Every popularist innovation since the Gracchi faced reversal. The irony escaped no one. Sulla used unprecedented power to restore traditional limits, committed systematic murder defending law, destroyed the Republic to save it. When young Julius Caesar refused to divorce his wife Cornelia, Marius's daughter, Sulla considered proscribing him. Advisors argued Caesar was too young, too insignificant. Sulla grudgingly agreed, but warned, "In this boy I see many Marii." The dictator's personal life reflected public contradictions. He married 5 times, kept Greek actor lovers, threw debauched parties between reform sessions. His appearance deteriorated, pale skin covered with bleeding sores, perhaps divine punishment for bloodshed. Yet he maintained icy control, signing death warrants between wine cups. Some resistance emerged. Sertorius, brilliant Marian general, established independent state in Spain. When Sulla sent armies, Sertorius defeated them using guerrilla tactics learned fighting Lusitanians. He created alternative Rome in exile, Senate, magistrates, schools teaching Roman culture to Spanish youth. The Republic's ideals survived in Iberian mountains while dying in Roman Forum. After 3 years of absolute power, Sulla shocked everyone by resigning. In 79 BCE, he laid down dictatorship, restored normal magistracies, retired to Campanian villa. Asked why he surrendered unlimited authority, he replied that he'd completed necessary reforms. More likely, he recognized that permanent dictatorship would invite assassination. His retirement proved as dissolute as his rule was disciplined. He wrote memoirs justifying every action, hosted orgies, drank continuously. Within a year, he died. His bowels exploded, body consumed by worms, fitting end for Rome's first systematic mass murderer. His funeral displayed supreme irony. The Republic's destroyer received the Republic's grandest ceremony. but precedents couldn't be buried with their creator. Sulla showed that military force could capture Rome, prescription lists could eliminate opposition, dictatorship could override all constraints. He proved that constitution meant nothing against determined general with loyal army. Every ambitious commander studied his methods. The immediate aftermath seemed to vindicate his reforms. Consuls were elected normally. Senate resumed deliberations. Courts functioned. Trade recovered. But underneath formal restoration, everything had changed. Fear permeated politics. Anyone could be tomorrow's prescribed. Wealth required armed protection. Political disputes implied potential death sentences. Young men who'd served under Sulla now entered public life. Pompey, enriched by prescription auctions, built power base. Crassus parlayed blood money into Rome's greatest fortune. Lucullus, Murena, and other Sullan lieutenants commanded armies. They'd learned that force trumped law, loyalty to generals surpassed state allegiance. The prescription's social damage ran deeper than immediate deaths. Families were shattered, sons of proscribed couldn't hold office. Properties changed hands violently, creating ownership disputes lasting generations. Trust evaporated. Your neighbor might be tomorrow's informant. The social fabric that bound Republic together unraveled thread by bloody thread. Intellectual life reflected trauma. Historians wrote cautiously, knowing wrong interpretation meant death. Poets celebrated private life, avoiding political themes. Philosophy turned inward. Stoicism's acceptance of fate appealed to those living under arbitrary power. Public virtue became private survival. The Senate Sulla empowered proved incapable of using authority effectively. Senators who'd survived through collaboration lacked moral credibility. Their attempts to maintain Sullan settlement appeared self-serving rather than principled. When challenges arose, Lepidus's revolt, Sertorius's resistance, Spartacus's rebellion, they fumbled responses. Most dangerously, Sulla created model for ambitious men. He'd shown the path: build personal army, find pretext for civil war, eliminate opponents through prescription, reform constitution to taste, retire safely. The formula awaited someone bold enough to attempt repetition or improvement. That someone already existed. In the East, young Pompey earned the nickname Magnus, conquering Sullan enemies. In Rome, Julius Caesar quietly built popularist connections. In the shadows, Crassus accumulated wealth and clients. Each had absorbed Sulla's lessons perfectly. The dictator's ghost haunted every political calculation. When senators opposed land distributions for veterans, they remembered Sulla's soldiers receiving prescribed property. When tribunes proposed reforms, opponents invoked Sullan precedent for suppression. Every conflict carried implicit threat: push too hard and prescription lists might return. By 78 BCE, when consul Lepidus attempted overturning Sullan reforms, the system's fragility became apparent. Only Pompey's intervention prevented renewed civil war. The Republic survived, but as patient with terminal disease temporarily in remission. Everyone knew relapse was inevitable. Sulla had performed surgery with poisoned blade. He'd cut out popularist tumors while infecting the body politic with militarism. He'd strengthened Senate while demonstrating its impotence against determined general. He'd restored constitution while proving constitutions meant nothing without consensus. His epitaph, self-composed, declared no friend went unrewarded, no enemy unpunished. True enough. But he'd transformed all Romans into potential friends or enemies, rewards or punishments determined by possession of temporary power. He'd saved the Republic by showing exactly how to destroy it. In the forum where prescription lists once hung, business slowly returned to normal. But citizens now glanced nervously at posting spots, wondering when new lists might appear. They conducted politics carefully, knowing wrong alliances meant death. They accumulated wealth quietly, understanding that prosperity attracted predators. The Republic endured, scarred but functional, yet everyone sensed its mortality. Sulla had shown the future: strongmen using armies to seize power, eliminating opposition through systematic murder, ruling through fear disguised as reform. He'd established precedent. Others would perfect practice. The bloody precedent was set. The Republic's death warrant was signed, requiring only names and dates to be filled in later. Sulla retired to his debaucheries, leaving others to complete what he'd begun. In distant Spain, Sertorius still resisted. In Italian hills, slave gladiator named Spartacus planned rebellion. In eastern kingdoms, Mithridates prepared renewed war. External threats multiplied while internal wounds festered. But the greatest threats walked Roman streets, ambitious men who'd learned Sulla's lessons all too well. They waited, planned, accumulated power and followers. When their time came, they would improve on their master's methods. The Republic survived Sulla. It would not survive his students. The age of Pompey and Cicero, Rome in the 60s BC, is a city of contradictions. The Senate still meets, consuls still take office, the Republic still breathes. But something fundamental has shifted. The old rules don't work anymore. Gnaeus Pompeius Magnus, Pompey the Great, returns from the east in 62 BC with a military record that defies belief. He's cleared the Mediterranean of pirates in 3 months, a task the Senate considered impossible. He's conquered kingdoms older than Rome itself. He's reorganized the entire eastern Mediterranean, creating new provinces and client states with the casual authority of a man arranging furniture. He's 34 years old. The Senate watches him disembark with his legions and feels a cold dread. Will he march on Rome like Sulla did? Will he install himself as dictator? The precedent exists now. The barrier has been broken. But Pompey surprises everyone. He dismisses his army. He asks the Senate politely to ratify his eastern settlements and provide land for his veterans. He plays by the rules. The Senate, relieved but resentful, refuses. This is their fatal mistake. Meanwhile, a different kind of power is rising. Marcus Tullius Cicero has no army. He commands no legions. He's a new man, the first in his family to reach the consulship, and the old aristocratic families barely conceal their contempt. But Cicero has a weapon more dangerous than swords. He has words. In 63 BC, as consul, he uncovers a conspiracy that should terrify every Roman. Lucius Sergius Catiline, a bankrupt aristocrat consumed by debt and ambition, is planning to burn Rome to the ground. The plot involves arson, political assassination, and the elimination of the Republic's leadership in a single night of violence. Cicero's informants bring him the evidence, secret meetings, coded messages, lists of conspirators. The scope of the plan is breathtaking in its audacity and madness. On November 8th, Cicero addresses the Senate with Catiline sitting among them. The opening lines become immortal. "How long, Catiline, will you abuse our patience?" He exposes everything, the meetings, the plans, the weapons being stockpiled outside Rome. He speaks for hours, his rhetoric a surgical instrument, dissecting the conspiracy before the entire Senate. Catiline tries to defend himself, but the chamber erupts in hostility. He flees Rome that night. The remaining conspirators are arrested. 5 of them, Roman citizens including a former consul, are held in the city. The debate over their fate reveals the Republic's deepest fault lines. Should they receive a trial? Can Roman citizens be executed without due process? The law says no, but the emergency says yes. Julius Caesar, serving as praetor, argues eloquently for imprisonment. Execution without trial, he warns, sets a precedent that will haunt Rome. Today it's conspirators. Tomorrow it could be anyone the state considers inconvenient. But Cato the Younger, the Republic's moral conscience, demands death. These men plan to destroy Rome. They deserve no mercy. Cicero makes the decision. The 5 are strangled in the underground prison called the Tullianum, one by one. On his authority as consul, the crowd cheers him as Rome's savior. 20 years later, this decision will destroy him. Catiline himself is hunted down in Etruria. He dies in battle in early 62 BC, fighting with his remaining forces against a consular army. The conspiracy ends not with a dramatic siege, but with a skirmish in the Italian countryside. Catiline's body is found far in front of his troops, surrounded by enemy dead. Whatever else he wasn't a coward. The conspiracy's exposure reveals the Republic's rot. How did a plot this extensive almost succeed? The answer is disturbing, because Rome is full of desperate men, veterans without land, aristocrats drowning in debt, ambitious politicians with no legal path to power. The system is breaking. Everyone can feel it. Pompey watches from the sidelines, still waiting for the Senate to grant his requests. They continue to refuse, blocking his settlements and delaying land distribution for his veterans. They think they're containing him. They're actually creating the conditions for his radicalization. In 60 BC, 3 men meet privately and change history. Pompey, frustrated with the Senate. Marcus Licinius Crassus, the richest man in Rome, hungry for military glory to match Pompey's. and Julius Caesar, a charismatic patrician returning from service in Spain, deep in debt but politically brilliant. They form a secret alliance, the first triumvirate, though the term comes later, a private agreement to support each other's political goals and block their mutual enemies. It's not technically illegal. There's no law against political cooperation, but it subverts the republic's entire structure. Three men acting in concert can control elections, legislation, and policy. The Senate becomes irrelevant. Caesar secures the consulship for 59 BC. Once in office, he rams through Pompey's legislation by force, using street violence and intimidation when the Senate resists. Cato tries to filibuster. Caesar has him dragged from the chamber. When Caesar's fellow consul objects, thugs poured excrement on his head in the forum. The republic's dignity collapses into farce. But Caesar has bigger ambitions. He secures a 5-year command in Gaul, the region north of Italy, encompassing modern France, Belgium, and beyond. It seems like a minor posting, a chance to enrich himself and pay his debts. Nobody realizes he's about to conquer an area larger than all existing Roman territory combined. The triumvirate holds for now. Pompey marries Caesar's daughter Julia, cementing the alliance with genuine affection that surprises everyone. Crassus plans his own military campaign to win glory in the east against Parthia. Rome's fate now rests not with the Senate, but with 3 men pursuing private agendas. The Republic survives in form, but not in function. Its institutions remain, but its soul has departed. Cicero, the defender of the old ways, finds himself increasingly isolated. His execution of the conspirators without trial, once praised, now marks him as a dangerous precedent setter. His letters from this period reveal a man who understands perfectly what's happening but lacks the power to stop it. He writes to his friend Atticus, "The Republic is no more. He's right, but the funeral hasn't happened yet. That will take another decade of bloodshed, betrayal, and war. The corpse still walks, still speaks, still goes through the motions. But Rome as a republic is already gone. What comes next will be empire, whether the Romans admit it or not. The question is no longer if Rome will have a master, but which man will prove strong enough to claim the prize." The stage is set, the actors are in position, and north of the Alps, Julius Caesar is about to become something more than just another ambitious politician. The first triumvirate and the Gallic Wars. Caesar crosses into Gaul in 58 BC with 4 legions and unlimited ambition. His official mandate is to protect Rome's northern border and manage the tribes of the region. His actual goal is far more audacious. He's going to conquer the entire region, and he's going to make himself rich and famous doing it. The opportunity arrives immediately. The Helvetii, a Celtic tribe from what we now call Switzerland, decide to migrate westward through Roman-controlled territory. They're not invading, they're moving. Entire families, wagons, children, perhaps 300,000 people seeking new lands. Caesar sees a threat that must be stopped, or possibly he sees an excuse. He intercepts them, attacks, and drives them back to their homeland. Then he doesn't leave. This is the pattern that will repeat for 8 years. Find a threat, eliminate it, and stay to secure the region. Each victory justifies further expansion. Each battle creates the necessity for the next. The Gallic tribes are fierce warriors, but politically fractured. They fight Rome individually rather than collectively, and Caesar exploits every division. He supports certain tribes against others, offering Roman protection while slowly tightening his grip. In 57 BC, he campaigns against the Belgae in the north, tribes known for their ferocity. The battles are brutal. At the Sambre River, his army nearly breaks. The enemy attacks while the legions are still building camp. For a moment, it looks like disaster. Caesar himself grabs a shield and rushes to the front lines, rallying his troops by personal example. It's the kind of moment that creates loyalty. The soldiers see their general fighting beside them, sharing their danger. They don't just respect Caesar, they start to love him. He writes about his campaigns in third person, producing yearly commentaries sent back to Rome. Caesar did this. Caesar ordered that. The style seems modest, but it's brilliant propaganda. His dispatches are read aloud in the forum, making him famous throughout the city. He's fighting in the mud and forests of Gaul, but he's winning the public relations war in Rome simultaneously. In 55 BC, Caesar does something unprecedented. He bridges the Rhine River, the boundary between Gaul and Germania, in 10 days. a wooden bridge nearly 400 paces long built by an army as a show of engineering prowess and military capability. He crosses with his legions, raids the Germanic tribes on the far side, then withdraws and destroys the bridge. The message is clear. Rome can reach anywhere. No natural barrier provides safety. That same year, he invades Britannia, the first Roman general to cross the ocean to the mysterious island at the edge of the known world. The campaign is more symbolic than strategic. He doesn't conquer the island, just raids the coast, but the propaganda value is immense. Caesar has gone where no Roman has gone before. He returns to Britannia in 54 BC with a larger force. This time he pushes inland, defeats the local tribes, and extracts tribute and hostages. The island remains unconquered, but Rome has made its presence known. But while Caesar fights abroad, the triumvirate is crumbling at home. In 54 BC, Julia, Pompey's wife, Caesar's daughter, passes during childbirth. The baby follows shortly after. The personal bond connecting Pompey and Caesar breaks. Their alliance was never just political. Julia's presence kept it human, kept it real. Without her, it's just two ambitious men watching each other warily. The following year brings worse news. Crassus, seeking military glory to rival his partners, launches an invasion of Parthia, Rome's great eastern rival. At Carrhae in 53 BC, the Parthian cavalry destroys his army. 7 legions, nearly 40,000 men, are defeated by horse archers and heavy cataphracts. Crassus himself is taken during a parley and executed. Legend says the Parthians poured molten gold down his throat, a final mockery of his famous wealth. The triumvirate is now a rivalry. 2 men, no mediator. Back in Gaul, Caesar faces his greatest challenge. Vercingetorix, a young Gallic chieftain of the Arverni tribe, accomplishes what no one else has. He unites the tribes. For the first time, Caesar faces a coordinated Gallic resistance fighting with strategy rather than just courage. Vercingetorix understands Roman strengths and weaknesses. Instead of meeting Caesar in open battle, he implements a scorched earth policy. Burn the fields, destroy the food stores, let winter and hunger defeat the legions. It nearly works. The winter of 52-51 BC is desperate. Caesar's army is scattered, hungry, and vulnerable. The Gauls attack Roman positions across the region. Several garrisons are overrun, but Vercingetorix makes a fatal mistake. He fortifies the hilltop town of Alesia and prepares to withstand a siege, expecting a relief army to trap Caesar between 2 forces. Caesar responds by doing something characteristically audacious. He builds 2 walls, one surrounding Alesia to keep the defenders in, another facing outward to keep the relief army out. 11 miles of inner fortifications, 14 miles of outer walls, towers, traps, and ditches, all built in weeks while under constant attack. When the Gallic relief army arrives, perhaps 250,000 warriors according to Caesar's account, the battle becomes one of survival. For days, the Romans fight on 2 fronts. The defenders of Alesia attack the inner wall. The relief force assaults the outer fortifications. Caesar rides from crisis to crisis, his red cloak visible everywhere, directing reinforcements to wherever the line threatens to break. The Gauls almost break through. One section of the outer wall nearly collapses under the assault. Caesar personally leads the final cavalry charge that turns the tide. The relief army breaks. Vercingetorix, watching from Alesia, realizes it's over. He surrenders himself to Caesar, riding out in full armor and laying his weapons at Caesar's feet in a gesture of submission. Caesar has him imprisoned. 6 years later, Vercingetorix will be paraded through Rome in Caesar's triumph, then strangled in the Tullianum, the traditional Roman reward for defeated enemy commanders. By 50 BC, Gaul is conquered. 8 years of warfare have added territory that doubles Rome's size. Caesar has won victories, wealth, and the fierce loyalty of battle-hardened legions who followed him through countless campaigns. He's also become a problem. In Rome, the political situation has deteriorated. Street violence between rival gangs has become routine. Pompey, after Julia's death, has drifted toward the Senate's traditionalist faction. They see him as a potential check against Caesar's growing power. The Senate orders Caesar to disband his army and return to Rome as a private citizen. They promise he can run for consul again, later, through legal channels, following proper procedure. Caesar sees the trap. Without his army and immunity from prosecution, his enemies will drag him into court on charges related to his consulship of 59 BC. Those illegal legislative tactics, the violence, the contempt for his colleagues' authority, he'll be convicted, exiled, or worse. His term as proconsul ends on January 1st, 49 BC. The Senate refuses to extend it. They refuse to let him run for consul in absentia. They're forcing a choice: give up the army and face prosecution, or keep the army and become an enemy of the state. Caesar requests a compromise. Let him keep one legion and the province of Cisalpine Gaul until he can legally take office as consul. This would give him immunity from prosecution while respecting constitutional forms. The Senate, urged by Cato and conservative factions, refuses. They've miscalculated. They think Caesar will back down rather than risk civil war. They think the republic's traditions and laws still hold power. They think he's like Pompey, who dismissed his legions and submitted to the Senate's will. They're wrong. Caesar stands with one legion at the Rubicon River, the boundary between his province and Italy proper. Roman law forbids generals from bringing armies into Italy. Crossing with troops is an act of war against the state. His officers wait. His men wait. History waits. Caesar makes his choice. Rubicon. The die is cast. The river is small, almost disappointing. You could wade across it in minutes. Children probably play in it during summer. But the Rubicon represents something far larger than water and mud. It's the constitutional boundary between military command and civilian authority. North of the river, Caesar is a legal proconsul with legitimate imperium. South of it, he becomes a criminal leading an armed invasion of his own country. The 13 Legions stands ready. These are veterans who fought with Caesar through 8 years of Gallic warfare. They've watched him fight beside them, enrich them with plunder, and never abandon them to die. Their loyalty isn't to Rome anymore. It's to him. Caesar hesitates. Even now, he could turn back, return to private life, face prosecution, accept political death. The Republic's mechanisms still function. Elections still happen. The consulship isn't worth tearing everything apart. Except it is. Because this isn't really about Caesar's career. It's about whether the old rules still apply, whether the Senate can dictate terms to generals who command loyal armies, whether Rome is still a republic or has already transformed into something else that nobody wants to name. According to the historian Suetonius, Caesar quotes a Greek playwright, "Let the die be cast." The 13 Legion crosses, January 10th, 49 BC. The Republic's final crisis begins not with a dramatic battle, but with a peaceful march through the Italian countryside. The response is panic. Rome hasn't seen a hostile army approach since Hannibal over a century ago. The Senate evacuates. Pompey evacuates. They flee south to gather forces, leaving the capital to Caesar without a fight. Caesar enters Rome unopposed. No bloodshed. No sacking. He makes a point of restraint, trying to position himself as the reasonable party in this conflict. He's not Sulla, he insists. No prescriptions, no purges, just a man defending his dignity and his rights. But Italy is only the beginning. The real war requires defeating Pompey, and Pompey has fled to Greece, where he's gathering the Republic's eastern legions. The Senate in exile has declared Caesar a public enemy. They have legitimacy, legal authority, and the backing of Rome's Mediterranean provinces. Caesar has speed, momentum, and veteran soldiers who trust him absolutely. The campaign moves to Spain first, where Pompeian forces control the provinces. Caesar's famous phrase captures his strategy: "I set out to fight an army without a leader. I will return to fight a leader without an army." He defeats Pompey's Spanish legions through brilliant maneuvering at Ilerda, securing the Western theater without major bloodshed. Then he returns to Italy and prepares for the main event. The crossing to Greece is risky. Pompey controls the seas. His fleet could destroy Caesar's transports before they reach the eastern shore. But Caesar moves fast, shuttling his legions across the Adriatic in winter when naval patrols are minimal. Mark Antony, Caesar's most capable lieutenant, brings the remaining forces across later, evading Pompey's navy through timing and luck. The campaign in Greece becomes a siege. Caesar surrounds Pompey's army at Dyrrhachium, attempting to starve them into submission. Pompey counters by building his own fortifications, creating a siege within a siege. For months, two Roman armies stare at each other across earthworks and palisades, occasionally skirmishing but avoiding decisive battle. Caesar makes a mistake. He attempts to storm a section of Pompey's defenses and gets beaten back badly. His forces suffer significant casualties and barely escape a complete disaster. For a moment, it looks like Pompey might actually win. But Pompey doesn't press his advantage. He's cautious by nature, reluctant to risk everything on a single engagement. He withdraws inland instead, seeking better ground and more supplies. Caesar follows. The armies finally meet on the plains of Pharsalus in August 48 BC. The battle should favor Pompey. He has more troops, nearly double Caesar's numbers. He has cavalry superiority. He has the backing of the legitimate Roman government. His soldiers are well trained and properly equipped. But Caesar has veterans who've conquered Gaul. Men who've fought in forests and mountains, crossed rivers and oceans, survived winters and sieges. They're outnumbered, but they've never lost when following Caesar. The battle begins with Pompey's cavalry attacking Caesar's right flank, seeking to encircle and crush his smaller force. It's a sound strategy. The cavalry charge with confidence, expecting to rout Caesar's outnumbered horsemen and strike his legions from behind. Caesar has anticipated this. He's positioned a fourth line behind his cavalry, legionaries trained to fight against mounted troops. When Pompey's cavalry breaks through, they run directly into disciplined infantry who've been ordered to target the riders' faces specifically. It's brutal, effective, and psychologically devastating. Pompey's cavalry breaks. They flee the field, abandoning the infantry to their fate. Caesar's veterans press forward against Pompey's center. These are citizen soldiers fighting other citizen soldiers, friends, possibly. Relatives, perhaps. The Civil War's true tragedy plays out in the dust and blood of Pharsalus. Pompey, watching his line crumble, breaks psychologically. He leaves the battlefield before the fighting ends, retreating to his camp in a daze. His army collapses around him. Some units surrender, others flee. Thousands perish trying to escape. Caesar wins decisively. The Republic's last army capable of challenging him has been destroyed. But the victory brings no joy. Walking the battlefield afterward, looking at the dead, Caesar reportedly says, "They wanted this. Even after all my achievements, they would have condemned me." It's true, but it's also irrelevant. You don't start a civil war and then claim victimhood. Pompey escapes by sea, fleeing to Egypt, where he hopes to find refuge and regroup. Egypt is Rome's client kingdom, wealthy and powerful. Surely the young pharaoh will support the legitimate Roman consul against a rebel general. But young Ptolemy XIII's advisors read the situation differently. Pompey is a loser backing a lost cause. Caesar is the future. Why antagonize Rome's new master for a has-been? When Pompey's boat reaches the Egyptian shore, Ptolemy's men row out to greet him. Pompey steps into their boat, leaving his wife and son watching from the ship. As soon as he's seated, they attack. They stab him in the back, multiple times. Pompey the Great, the conqueror of the East, Rome's most celebrated general, is taken down in a fishing boat by Egyptian courtiers seeking favor with Caesar. His wife and son watch it happen, helpless from their ship. They can't even recover the body. The Egyptians cut off Pompey's head to present as a gift to Caesar. When Caesar arrives in Egypt days later, they present him with Pompey's severed head and his signet ring. According to sources, Caesar weeps. Whether from genuine grief at his former friend's degrading end or theatrical display of magnanimity, we can't know. He has Pompey's head respectfully cremated. Then he turns his attention to Egypt itself. Egypt is a mess. Young Ptolemy XIII and his older sister wife Cleopatra VII are locked in a civil war of their own. Cleopatra has been driven from Alexandria by her brother's advisors. She's regrouping in the east with her own forces. Caesar decides to arbitrate. It's not really his business. But Egypt is wealthy, strategically important, and currently vulnerable. Plus, he's developing a personal interest in the situation. Cleopatra famously has herself smuggled into Caesar's presence, rolled in a carpet. The image is iconic. The reality is more complex. She's 21, multilingual, educated, and politically brilliant. Caesar is 52. The most powerful man in the Mediterranean, and tired of Roman political women. They begin an affair that will become legendary. Young Ptolemy's advisors are furious. They attempt to trap Caesar in Alexandria's palace quarter, starting a minor war. The fighting becomes known as the Alexandrian War. It's almost a footnote in Caesar's career, but it includes dramatic moments. The burning of ships in the harbor that accidentally spreads to part of Alexandria's famous library, Caesar swimming for his life while holding important documents above water. He crushes Ptolemy's forces. The young pharaoh drowns while fleeing across the Nile, weighed down by his golden armor. Cleopatra becomes sole ruler of Egypt, technically sharing power with her younger brother Ptolemy XIV, but everyone knows who's really in charge. Caesar spends months in Egypt. His enemies in Rome whisper he's gone soft, distracted by Cleopatra's charms. But he's also securing Rome's grain supply and establishing Egypt as a reliable client state under a ruler personally loyal to him. When he finally leaves, Cleopatra is pregnant with his son. She'll name him Caesarion, Little Caesar. But Caesar's war isn't over. Pompey's sons and remaining supporters have regrouped in North Africa, backed by King Juba of Numidia and several legions of bitter republicans. Caesar must face them at Thapsus in 46 BC. The battle is almost pathetic. Caesar's veterans crush the opposition so thoroughly that it resembles an execution rather than a fight. Cato, the Republic's moral voice, is stationed at nearby Utica. When news of the defeat reaches him, he knows it's over. Rather than surrender to Caesar's clemency, Cato commits self-slaughter. He stabs himself in the stomach, and when his physicians patch him up, he tears the wound open with his bare hands and pulls out his own intestines. It's a grotesquely theatrical end for a man who valued principle above all else, but it makes him a martyr. Caesar may have won the war, but Cato wins the propaganda battle in death. He becomes the symbol of republican virtue destroyed by tyranny. Caesar still has one final campaign. Pompey's sons have raised another army in Spain. Caesar defeats them at Munda in 45 BC in what he describes as his hardest battle. His forces nearly break. For a moment, he considers taking a sword and fighting until someone takes him down, ending the civil war with his own end. But his veterans rally. They win. Pompey's remaining son escapes, but is hunted down later. The civil war is over. Caesar returns to Rome as undisputed master of the Mediterranean world. The Republic's institutions still exist, but they're hollow shells. The Senate still meets, but only to ratify Caesar's decisions. He holds every office simultaneously. Dictator for 10 years. Consul. Tribune. Pontifex Maximus. His face appears on coins while he's still alive, breaking centuries of tradition. He launches ambitious reforms, a new calendar replacing the old lunar system, the Julian calendar that will last 2 millennia. Building projects throughout Rome, settlement colonies for veterans, citizenship extensions, plans to codify Roman law. But he's also careless with symbols. He accepts excessive honors. He remains seated when senators approach. He openly discusses plans for campaigns to Parthia to complete what Crassus failed to achieve. Some men start to wonder if they've traded the Republic for a king, and Rome overthrew its last king 500 years ago. In the Senate, behind closed doors, a conspiracy forms. Not against Caesar's policies, against Caesar himself. The Ides of March approach. The Ides of March, Caesar has changed Rome. The question is whether Rome will let him keep it. He returns from Spain in October 45 BC and immediately resumes his transformation of the state. Colonies are founded from Gaul to Africa. Laws are passed reorganizing the courts and reforming debt. The calendar itself bends to his will. What we call July is named Julius in his honor while he still breathes. But something is off. The Senate meetings feel wrong. Men who once debated fiercely now simply vote yes to whatever Caesar proposes. The old contentious energy has drained away, replaced by a fearful compliance that satisfies nobody. Caesar holds multiple offices simultaneously, breaking all precedent. Dictator for 10 years initially, then for life. Consul. Tribune's authority without actually being tribune. Pontifex Maximus. Every position of power combined in one person. He sits on a golden chair during Senate sessions. He receives senators while remaining seated, a breach of respect that stings the old aristocrats. When Mark Antony offers him a royal diadem during a public festival, Caesar refuses, but the gesture itself is telling. They're testing boundaries, seeing what Romans will accept. The problem isn't that Caesar is cruel. He's remarkably merciful by Roman standards. He pardons his enemies. Marcus Brutus, who fought for Pompey at Pharsalus, now serves as urban praetor. Cassius holds another praetorship. Cicero remains free despite opposing Caesar throughout the Civil War. This clemency is actually part of the problem. These pardoned men didn't want forgiveness. They wanted to win. Now they owe their positions to Caesar's generosity, a daily reminder of their defeat and his superiority. Caesar plans another war. Parthia remains unconquered and Crassus's defeat unavenged. Caesar intends to launch a massive eastern campaign in March 44 BC. He'll be gone for years, leaving Rome to his supporters while he pursues glory beyond the Euphrates. For certain senators, this is the final straw. Once Caesar leaves with his legions, once he conquers Parthia and returns with more victories, more wealth, more prestige, there will be no possibility of returning to the Republic. He'll be unchallengeable. They have to act now, while he's in Rome, while he's vulnerable. The conspiracy begins with Gaius Cassius Longinus. He fought at Pharsalus on Pompey's side, received Caesar's pardon, and has nursed his resentment ever since. He's capable, bitter, and motivated by a mix of principle and personal hatred. He recruits Marcus Junius Brutus. This is crucial. Brutus carries symbolic weight. He's descended from Lucius Junius Brutus, the legendary founder of the Republic who overthrew Rome's last king. He's also rumored to be Caesar's illegitimate son. Caesar definitely had an affair with Brutus's mother decades ago. Brutus struggles with the decision. He owes Caesar everything: his position, his pardon, possibly his life. But he's also been raised on stories of his ancestors' heroism, of how real Romans choose principle over personal loyalty. Someone scrawls graffiti around Rome: "You're sleeping, Brutus. You're not a real Brutus." The pressure works. Brutus joins the conspiracy. They recruit carefully. Too many members in the secret leaks, too few, and they might fail. They end up with about 60 conspirators, mostly senators, all convinced they're saving the Republic from tyranny. The plan is simple: assassination during a Senate meeting on March 15th, the Ides of March in the Roman calendar. Caesar will be surrounded, isolated from his bodyguards, vulnerable. Multiple attackers ensure success even if individual courage fails. The night before, there are omens, or at least people remember omens afterward. Calpurnia, Caesar's wife, has nightmares about his death. Soothsayers warn him about the Ides of March. Birds behave strangely. Caesar almost cancels. He's feeling unwell. The Senate meeting can wait. But Decimus Brutus, a different Brutus, one of Caesar's most trusted men, also part of the conspiracy, arrives at his house. He mocks the omens gently. Would Caesar let superstition override his duties? What will the Senate think if he doesn't appear? Caesar goes. The meeting is held at Pompey's theater complex in a hall attached to the theater. The Senate House is under renovation. The irony of what's about to happen in a building dedicated to Pompey would be poetic if it weren't so tragic. Caesar enters. The conspirators are positioned throughout the room, daggers hidden in their togas. Mark Antony, Caesar's loyal supporter, is deliberately detained outside by another conspirator under some pretext. He's too dangerous to have nearby. A senator approaches Caesar with a petition. It's a signal. As Caesar reads it, the man grabs his toga and pulls it down, exposing his neck and shoulders. The first blade strikes. Caesar turns, shocked, and catches his attacker's arm. Why? This is violence. Then the others rush in. 23 stab wounds. Different accounts give different numbers, but the autopsy, yes, Romans performed autopsies, counts 23 separate wounds. The conspirators literally line up to strike him, each wanting to share in the act, binding themselves together with blood. Caesar fights back initially. He struggles, tries to escape, but he's surrounded. When he sees Brutus approaching with a dagger, something inside him breaks. "You too, child?" The Greek phrase he allegedly uses, kaisu, teknon, becomes immortal. Whether he actually said it, we don't know, but it captures the betrayal's essence. Caesar stops fighting. He pulls his toga over his head, maintaining dignity even in death, and allows the blades to finish him. He collapses at the base of Pompey's statue. The symbolism is almost too perfect. The conspirators stand there, covered in blood, waiting for, what? Applause? Citizens rushing to thank them for saving the Republic? A spontaneous celebration of restored liberty? Instead, there's confused silence. Then panic. The senators flee. Common citizens scatter. Rome doesn't know what to make of what just happened. The conspirators march through the streets, daggers still bloody, calling out that they've eliminated a tyrant. They expect to be hailed as liberators. Instead, people close their doors and shudders. The city goes quiet with fear. The conspiracy had no plan beyond the assassination itself. They thought ending Caesar would restore the Republic automatically, as if the old system was just waiting beneath the surface to spring back to life. They were wrong. Caesar's body lies in the Senate chamber for hours before anyone dares retrieve it. When his slaves finally carry him home, the autopsy reveals that of the 23 wounds, only one was actually fatal. The second blow, piercing his chest. The rest just tortured him. Mark Antony, Caesar's closest supporter, takes control of the situation with impressive speed. He secures Caesar's will and personal papers. He negotiates with the conspirators. There will be no immediate arrests if they agree to leave Rome temporarily. The Senate grants them amnesty, but Antony has Caesar's will, and when it's read publicly, it changes everything. Caesar has left most of his wealth to the Roman people. Every citizen receives a monetary gift. His private gardens become public parks. And most importantly, he's posthumously adopted his great-nephew Gaius Octavius as his son and heir. This 18-year-old studying in Greece when the assassination happened is now Gaius Julius Caesar Octavianus, young Octavian, Caesar's son. At Caesar's funeral, Antony delivers a masterful speech. He displays Caesar's bloody toga. He reads the will again. He reminds Romans what Caesar gave them, what he accomplished, how he was mercifully forgiving to his enemies. By the end, the crowd is rioting. They try to burn down the conspirators' houses. The liberators flee Rome for their lives, exactly as they'd forced others to flee months before. Brutus and Cassius escape to the eastern provinces. They'll raise armies and prepare for civil war, because that's what this has triggered, not republican restoration, but another round of bloodshed. The conspirators thought they were slaying a tyrant. They actually created a martyr. Caesar dead becomes more powerful than Caesar alive. His veterans demand vengeance. His supporters control Rome. His heir has legitimacy and his name. The republic the conspirators wanted to save, it's even more dead than before, because now there's no single strong man holding things together through force of personality. Now there's a power vacuum, multiple competing factions, and no path back to the old system. Cicero, who wasn't part of the conspiracy but sympathized with it, sees the disaster immediately. He writes, "We have slain the tyrant. The tyranny survives." Caesar lies on a funeral pyre in the Forum. The flames consume his body while Rome descends into chaos once again. He came to power through civil war. His death guarantees another one. The conspirators believed they were heroes of the Republic. History will remember them as men who accelerated its end. The final nail wasn't Caesar establishing monarchy. It was the desperate attempt to stop him. Rome will have an emperor. The only question is which man will claim the title and how much blood will be spilled, determining the answer. Young Octavian, barely old enough to serve in the legions, is about to step onto history's stage. He's not a general like Caesar. He's not a warrior like Antony. He's cold, calculating, and patient, and he's learned from Caesar's one fatal mistake: never give your enemies a chance to forgive. The second triumvirate and the avenging son. The boy is 18 years old, sickly, and has never commanded troops in his life. When news of Caesar's assassination reaches him in Greece, his advisors urge caution. Return to Rome quietly, accept what inheritance you can. Don't challenge men like Mark Antony who control legions. Octavian ignores them. He lands in Italy in April 44 BC and immediately claims his inheritance. He's no longer Gaius Octavius. He's Gaius Julius Caesar, Caesar's adopted son, Caesar's heir, Caesar's avenger. The audacity is breathtaking. Mark Antony, Caesar's right-hand man, consul, and war hero that expects to inherit Caesar's political power. He's in his late 30s, battle-tested, charismatic. This teenager is nobody. But the teenager has Caesar's name. And Caesar's veterans hear that name and remember their general. They hear that name and remember the promises of land and glory. They hear that name and decide maybe this boy deserves a chance. Antony makes his first mistake. He dismisses Octavian as irrelevant. At their initial meeting, Antony barely conceals his contempt. The boy is physically unimpressive, frequently ill, prone to fainting. How could he possibly matter? Octavian absorbs the insult and begins systematically undermining Antony's position. He uses Caesar's wealth, now his wealth, to pay Caesar's promised legacies to the troops. He courts the Senate, positioning himself as a moderate alternative to Antony's aggressive populism. The Senate, desperate for any leverage against Antony, empowers Octavian with a special command. They're using him, thinking they can control him. Another fatal miscalculation. By late 44 BC, Antony has left Rome to consolidate power in Cisalpine Gaul. He's besieging Decimus Brutus. the conspirator who convinced Caesar to attend that final Senate meeting in the city of Mutina. The Senate sends a consular army to break the siege, and they bring Octavian with his troops as reinforcements. The Battle of Mutina in April 43 BC is Octavian's first military experience. It's not glorious. The fighting is brutal and confused. Both consuls leading the senatorial army perish, but Antony's forces are beaten. He's forced to retreat westward, his army reduced and his position weakened. The Senate celebrates. They've defeated the dangerous Mark Antony using their obedient tool, young Octavian. They assume the boy will now accept their continued patronage and guidance. Octavian watches both consuls expire in battle and realizes something crucial. He now commands the Senate's army, and there's no consular authority above him. He's 19 years old and suddenly one of the most powerful men in Italy. He marches his legions to Rome and demands the consulship. The Senate refuses. He's far below the legal age requirement. Octavian has one of his centurions throw his sword on the Senate floor. This will give it to him if you don't. The Senate grants him the consulship. August 43 BC. He's 19. But Octavian is politically intelligent enough to recognize his limitations. He can't defeat Caesar's enemies alone. He needs allies. And there's one man who, despite their recent hostility, shares his fundamental goal, avenging Caesar. Mark Antony. They meet in November 43 BC on a small island in a river near Bononia. Antony, Marcus Aemilius Lepidus, another of Caesar's generals, and Octavian. 3 men with armies, negotiating the future of Rome. They create the Second Triumvirate. But unlike the secret alliance of Pompey, Crassus, and Caesar, this is official. A legally recognized board of 3 men for restoring the Republic. The bitter irony of that title isn't lost on anyone. They divide the Roman world between them. Antony gets Gaul, Lepidus gets Spain and Africa. Octavian gets the difficult territories, the troubled provinces, the places where he'll struggle. The older men still underestimate him, and then they address their enemies. The proscriptions begin. Sulla established the precedent half a century earlier: create lists of political enemies, declare them outlaws, confiscate their property, and reward anyone who brings in their heads. It's state-sponsored elimination, legal plunder, and political terror combined. The Second Triumvirate's proscription lists are extensive. Senators, equestrians, anyone who opposed Caesar or might oppose them. The number varies by source, perhaps 200 or 300 senators, 2,000 equestrians, maybe more. Each triumvir can protect certain individuals, but they also have to sacrifice some of their own supporters to satisfy their partners' demands for vengeance. It's a grotesque negotiation. Antony allegedly demands Cicero. Octavian initially resists. Cicero supported him against Antony, but eventually agrees. Cicero is 63 years old when they come for him. He's been Rome's greatest orator for 4 decades, its consul during the Catiline conspiracy, its defender against tyranny. He's also written a series of speeches, the Philippics, viciously attacking Antony after Caesar's death. Antony hasn't forgotten. Cicero tries to escape by sea. The soldiers catch his litter on the road. According to accounts, Cicero stretches his neck out from the curtains, accepting his fate with philosophical resignation. They cut off his head. They cut off his hands, the hands that wrote the Philippics. Antony has them nailed to the speaker's platform in the Forum, where Cicero delivered so many speeches. His wife allegedly stabs his tongue with hairpins, mocking the silver tongue that had moved generations. It's a desecration. And it's exactly what the Second Triumvirate wants: a message written in blood about what happens to those who oppose them. The proscriptions last for months. Informants profit by betraying neighbors. Slaves sometimes inform on masters, earning freedom and money. The social fabric tears apart as people inform on each other for reward or revenge or safety. This is what the Republic has become. Not the dignified government of law and custom, but a regime maintained by terror and legalized plunder. With their rear secure and their coffers filled with confiscated wealth, the triumvirs turn east. Brutus and Cassius have spent the 2 years since Caesar's assassination raising armies in the Greek provinces. They've gathered 17 legions, a massive force, and they control the eastern Mediterranean. The final confrontation happens at Philippi in Macedonia, October 42nd BC. 2 battles, separated by weeks, both desperate and confused. The first battle is indecisive, Brutus's forces break through Octavian's lines. Octavian himself is supposedly too sick to command effectively and nearly gets captured. But Antony's wing crushes Cassius's troops. Cassius, thinking the day is lost, takes his own life. It's premature. Brutus has actually won his section of the field, but information in ancient battles is always imperfect. Brutus commands the remaining Republican forces. For weeks, the armies face each other across their camps, neither willing to risk another engagement. But Antony and Octavian control supply lines from the west. Time favors them. Brutus's troops grow restless. They demand battle. He finally agrees against his better judgment. The second battle destroys the last Republican army. Brutus's troops fight bravely, but they're outmaneuvered and overwhelmed. As his position collapses, Brutus escapes with a few companions. He asks one of them to assist in his self-slaughter. You too, Brutus, becomes a bitter echo of Caesar's last words. The last of the liberators has fallen. With the Republican forces destroyed, the triumvirs divide responsibilities. Antony takes the east, the wealthy, cultured provinces that need management and can fund their ambitions. Octavian gets Italy and the west, broke, war-ravaged, full of angry veterans demanding the land they were promised. Lepidus gets sidelined. He's the third wheel, the one who contributed least. He keeps Africa for now, but everyone knows he doesn't matter. Octavian returns to Italy to face an impossible task, finding land for tens of thousands of veterans in a country that's been at war for 5 years. The solution is brutal. Confiscate property from cities that supported the wrong side, evict current occupants, distribute land to soldiers. It creates new enemies everywhere. Displaced landowners, angry communities, people who supported Octavian but now suffer for his victory. One of those displaced farmers is allegedly Virgil, who will later write the Aeneid, partly to legitimize Octavian's rule. While Octavian struggles with Italy's mess, Antony travels to the east and encounters Cleopatra. She arrives by ship to meet him at Tarsus, and according to Plutarch, she makes it a theatrical performance. Her barge is decorated with gold and purple sails. She reclines under a golden canopy, dressed as Venus. The meeting isn't just diplomatic, it's seduction as political theater. It works. Antony is 42, charming, military-minded, and famous for his appetites. Cleopatra is 28, brilliant, and needing Roman protection for her throne. They begin an affair that's both genuine passion and calculated politics. Antony follows her back to Alexandria. He spends the winter of 41 to 40 BC there, supposedly neglecting his duties while indulging in luxury. It's the beginning of a pattern that will destroy him. Back in Italy, tensions explode into conflict. Antony's brother and wife start a war against Octavian, supposedly defending Antony's interests. The Perusian War is short and vicious. Octavian besieges them in the city of Perusia through winter 4140 BC. When they surrender, he executes 300 senators and equestrians who supported them. The boy who seemed weak is proving utterly ruthless. Antony returns from Egypt to confront Octavian. Their armies face each other at Brundisium in 40 BC. Civil war between the triumvirs seems inevitable, but their troops refuse to fight. The veterans on both sides have been at war for too long. They demand their leaders negotiate instead. It's one of history's interesting moments. Soldiers constraining their commanders, forcing peace because they're too exhausted for another round. The triumvirs make peace. To seal it, Antony marries Octavian's sister, Octavia. It's a political marriage, but apparently a successful one. Octavia is loyal, intelligent, and genuinely seems to care for Antony. This should stabilize everything. The triumvirs are family now. The east is Antony's, the west is Octavian's. Lepidus has Africa. Peace at last. Except Antony can't stay away from Egypt, from Cleopatra. He returns to her, beginning a relationship that will define his final years and ultimately doom him. Octavian watches from Rome and waits. He's patient. He's learned that in politics, sometimes you just need to let your enemies destroy themselves. The stage is set for the final act. Two men who once allied to avenge Caesar now moving toward inevitable collision. One controls the rich East and has Egypt's wealth. The other controls Italy and Rome itself, Actium and the birth of an empire. The world splits in two, East and West, Antony and Octavian, Egypt and Rome. For nearly a decade after Philippi, this division holds. Antony rules the eastern provinces from Alexandria, living with Cleopatra and their children. He conducts military campaigns, manages diplomacy, and generally fulfills his duties. But he's also adopting Greek customs, celebrating Egyptian ceremonies, and making decisions that look increasingly foreign to Roman eyes. Octavian consolidates power in the West through patient systematization. He's not charismatic like Antony. He's not a battlefield commander who inspires through personal valor, but he's brutally effective at administration, propaganda, and political maneuvering. In 36 BC, they cooperate one final time to eliminate Pompey's surviving son, Sextus Pompeius, who's been using Sicily as a base to disrupt grain shipments. Octavian's general, Marcus Agrippa, wins the naval battles that end Sextus's threat. It also gives Octavian an excuse to remove Lepidus from the triumvirate entirely. When Lepidus tries to claim Sicily for himself, his troops defect to Octavian. The third triumvir becomes a political exile, powerless but alive. Now there are two. Antony campaigns against Parthia in 36 to 35 BC, seeking to succeed where Crassus failed and restore Roman military honor. The campaign is disastrous. Poor planning, harsh terrain, and Parthian cavalry tactics result in heavy Roman casualties. Antony limps back to Syria having achieved nothing except proving he's not invincible. Meanwhile, Octavian carefully cultivates his image in Rome. He's Caesar's heir, the dutiful Roman, the defender of traditional values against Eastern decadence. His propaganda machine, led by his advisor Maecenas and enabled by poets like Virgil and Horace, begins painting a picture, loyal Octavian versus corrupted Antony. The marriage between Antony and Octavia officially dissolves in 32 BC. Antony formally divorces her to acknowledge his relationship with Cleopatra. In Rome, this plays perfectly into Octavian's narrative. Antony has abandoned his noble Roman wife for an Egyptian queen. He's choosing foreign luxury over Roman duty. Octavian makes his boldest propaganda move. He seizes Antony's will from the Vestal virgins who guard it and reads it publicly. Whether he actually had it or fabricated parts, the revealed contents are damaging. Antony acknowledges his children with Cleopatra as legitimate heirs. He requests burial in Alexandria rather than Rome. He grants eastern territories to Cleopatra's children. To Roman sensibilities, this is treason. Antony is giving Roman territories to a foreign queen and her offspring. He's subordinating Rome to Egypt. Octavian doesn't declare war on Antony. That would be civil war, and Romans are exhausted with civil wars. Instead, he has the Senate declare war on Cleopatra. She's the foreign threat. Antony is simply her unfortunate pawn. It's masterful political theater. But it's also transparent. Everyone knows this is really about Antony. The armies gather in Greece. Antony and Cleopatra bring a massive force, perhaps 70,000 infantry, 12,000 cavalry, and 500 ships, including Cleopatra's Egyptian fleet. They're well supplied, well funded by Egypt's wealth, and occupying good defensive positions along Greece's western coast. Octavian and Agrippa bring a slightly smaller force, but with crucial advantages. Their army is composed of Italian veterans loyal to Caesar's heir. Their fleet, though smaller, is more maneuverable. And crucially, Agrippa is one of history's most capable naval commanders. The campaign becomes a siege. Agrippa captures key supply bases, cutting Antony's forces off from reinforcements and provisions. Antony's army, camped around the Gulf of Actium, begins suffering from disease and desertion. Malaria spreads through the camps. Officers defect to Octavian, bringing intelligence about Antony's weakening position. By September 31st BC, Antony faces a terrible choice. He can stay and watch his army disintegrate, he can retreat overland through hostile territory, or he can attempt a naval breakout through Octavian's fleet. He chooses the breakout. The Battle of Actium happens on September 2nd, 34 BC. It's not the glorious naval engagement poets will later celebrate. It's a messy, confused affair where the outcome is determined as much by morale and defection as by combat. Antony's plan is to break through with his best ships and escape to Egypt with Cleopatra's squadron, leaving the rest of his fleet to cover their retreat. It's not heroic, but it might work. The fleets engage. Antony's heavy ships are formidable but slow. Agrippa's lighter, faster vessels attack from multiple angles, using incendiary weapons and superior maneuverability. The battle grinds on for hours under the hot sun. Then Cleopatra's squadron, carrying the war chest and positioned behind the main line, suddenly raises sails and flees through a gap in Octavian's line. It's been debated ever since whether this was the plan all along or a moment of panic. Either way, it works. Her ships escape, and Antony follows, leaving his fleet, leaving his army. He transfers to a faster ship and chases after Cleopatra's vessels. Whether it's love, loyalty, or pragmatism doesn't matter. He abandons his troops in the middle of battle. The effect is catastrophic. His remaining fleet, seeing their commander flee, loses all will to fight. Some ships surrender, others are burned. Within hours, Antony's navy ceases to exist. His land army, intact and still formidable, waits at their camp for news. When they learn Antony has fled, they're stunned. They wait for 7 days, hoping he'll return. He doesn't. Eventually, they surrender to Octavian, who accepts them into his own forces. Antony and Cleopatra reach Egypt and try to organize resistance, but it's hopeless. Octavian invades Egypt in 30 BC with overwhelming force. Antony's remaining troops defect or surrender without fighting. Outside Alexandria, receiving false news that Cleopatra has taken her own life, Antony stabs himself. The wound is mortal, but not immediately fatal. He's carried to Cleopatra's mausoleum, where she's barricaded herself. They have a final meeting, Antony expiring in her arms. Cleopatra attempts to negotiate with Octavian. She's pragmatic to the end, looking for some way to preserve her life and her children's future, but Octavian wants her for his triumph. She'll be paraded through Rome as a defeated enemy, the ultimate humiliation for a proud queen. She chooses self-determined death instead. The famous story involves an asp, a venomous snake, smuggled in a basket of figs. The reality might be poison. The method matters less than the result. Egypt's last pharaoh takes her own life rather than serve as Octavian's trophy. Octavian has their teenage son Caesarion hunted down and executed. He can't allow a potential rival with a claim to Caesar's legacy to survive. Cleopatra's other children, her offspring with Antony, he spares and sends to be raised by Octavia. It's both mercy and propaganda. Look how generous the victor can afford to be. Egypt becomes a Roman province, not a normal one. Octavian keeps it under his personal control. No senator may visit without his permission. It's too wealthy, too strategically vital. The grain that feeds Rome now flows directly through Octavian's hands. He returns to Rome in 29 BC, having achieved what seemed impossible a decade earlier. He's eliminated all rivals, he controls all legions, he has wealth from Egypt, he has legitimacy as Caesar's heir and avenger. The question now, what does he do with this power? He could become dictator like Sulla or Caesar. But Caesar's assassination proved how dangerous that title is. He could take a crown and become king, but Romans loathe kings. It's in their cultural DNA. So Octavian does something cleverer. He doesn't take power, he gives it back. In January 27th BC, he appears before the Senate and announces he's returning the provinces to senatorial control. He's relinquishing his extraordinary powers. He's restoring the republic. The Senate, primed by his supporters, immediately protests. They beg him to reconsider. They insist Rome needs him. They grant him new powers, new provinces to govern, new titles. He accepts reluctantly, or pretends to. It's political theater, but effective theater. The Senate gives him a new name, Augustus, meaning the revered one. It's not a political title. It's religious, suggesting divine favor without claiming divinity. It's perfect. Augustus, we'll call him that now, crafts a new system. He's not dictator or king. He's princeps, first citizen. The republic continues. Elections still happen. The Senate still meets. Consuls still take office. But everyone knows Augustus holds real power. He controls the army. He controls Egypt. He controls the grain supply. He has ultimate authority while maintaining the fiction of republican government. It's called the Principate. And it will last for centuries. Augustus works to heal Rome's wounds. He closes the Temple of Janus, which stays open during wartime, for only the third time in Roman history. He sponsors building programs throughout Rome. He legislates moral reforms attempting to restore traditional values. He patronizes poets who write of Rome's destiny and glory. The Pax Romana begins, not because everyone loves peace, but because one man has concentrated enough power to enforce it. After a century of civil wars, Romans accept the trade, freedom for security, republic for stability. Augustus creates an imperial system without calling it an empire. Future rulers will be emperors, but he's just princeps. He's transformed Rome while claiming to have restored it. It's his greatest achievement and his greatest lie. The republic is gone. It's been gone since Caesar crossed the Rubicon, really. Maybe since Sulla marched on Rome. possibly since the Gracchi brothers were beaten down a century earlier. The institution survived, but the spirit had expired long ago. Augustus simply acknowledges reality and builds something new on the Republic's corpse. Rome is an empire now. It will deny this for generations, maintaining the fiction of republican government. But the truth is visible to anyone willing to see it. One man rules. That man can name his successor. The succession might not always be smooth, but the principle is established. Rome has an emperor whether it admits it or not, and it will keep that emperor for over 400 years in the West, longer still in the East. The Republic lasted 5 centuries. The empire will last twice as long. Augustus achieved what Caesar couldn't. He ended the civil wars, consolidated power, and died peacefully in bed at age 75, surrounded by family. His last words, supposedly, were, "Have I played my part well?" The answer is yes. He played it perfectly. He transformed the Roman state while claiming to have saved it. He became all-powerful while insisting he was just first among equals. He established a dynasty while maintaining republican forms. Rome has entered a new age, the age of Augustus, the age of empire, the Augustan age. Peace feels strange after so many years of war. Augustus understands this. When he returns to Rome after Actium, he doesn't celebrate military triumph and retire to enjoy his power. He rebuilds, not just buildings, though those too, but the entire concept of what Rome means and what Romans should be. The city itself becomes his canvas. He famously claims he found Rome a city of brick and left it marble. This isn't mere boasting. When he takes power, Rome is still largely built of wood, mud brick, and stone. His building program transforms it into an imperial capital of monumental architecture. The Forum of Augustus opens in 2 BC, though construction started decades earlier. Marble temples, colonnade porticos, statues of Roman heroes from Aeneas to Romulus to great generals of the Republic. The message is clear. Augustus isn't breaking with the past, but fulfilling it. The Ara Pacis, altar of peace, celebrates his achievement of ending civil war. Its marble reliefs show Augustus and his family in religious procession, mixing political power with pious tradition. Peace becomes something Roman, something dignified, something worth celebrating as much as conquest. But Augustus knows Rome can't simply stop being martial. The legions need purpose beyond keeping him in power. So expansion continues, but controlled and strategic. The Rhine and Danube rivers become the northern frontiers. Provinces are organized. Roads are built connecting everything to Rome. His stepson Tiberius and stepson-turned-adopted son Germanicus campaign in Germania, pushing Roman influence beyond the Rhine. For years, it seems like Germania might become another Gaul, conquered, pacified, Romanized. Then comes the disaster. In 9 AD, Publius Quinctilius Varus governs Germania with 3 legions. He's a political appointee, competent enough in peacetime administration, but lacking military instinct. The Germanic tribes seem pacified. Roman roads are being built. Tax collection is beginning. Everything suggests successful integration. A Germanic chieftain named Arminius serves as Varus's advisor. He's been to Rome, he's been granted citizenship, he leads auxiliary troops fighting for Rome. Varus trusts him completely. Arminius is planning the greatest ambush in Roman military history. He convinces Varus that a minor rebellion needs addressing. The legions march through the Teutoburg forest in September, stretched out in column formation along a narrow forest track. They're not expecting combat. They're conducting a routine pacification operation. The Germanic tribes attack from the trees. The legions, unable to form proper lines in the dense forest, are slaughtered over 3 days of running battle. Officers are targeted first. Command structure collapses, panic spreads. When it ends, 3 legions this fated night have been annihilated, perhaps 15,000 soldiers gone. Varus takes his own life rather than face capture. The Germanic warriors desecrate the battlefield, leaving Roman bodies nailed to trees as warnings. News reaches Augustus in Rome. According to Suetonius, the elderly emperor wanders his palace for months afterward, occasionally banging his head against doors and crying out, "Quintilius Varus, give me back my legions." Those 3 legion numbers are never used again. Rome will recover militarily, but Germania is abandoned as a conquest project. The Rhine becomes a permanent frontier instead of a temporary boundary. The lost legions become a psychological wound that never fully heals. This disaster aside, the Augustan peace largely holds. Augustus approaches governance with the patient methodism that defined his rise to power. He's not flashy. He doesn't seek personal glory anymore. He builds systems. The Praetorian Guard is formalized. 9 cohorts of elite troops stationed in and around Rome, supposedly for the emperor's protection. They'll become kingmakers in later generations, but for now they're simply the imperial bodyguard. The provinces are divided into senatorial and imperial. Senatorial provinces, peaceful and profitable, are theoretically governed by the Senate. Imperial provinces, requiring military presence, answer to Augustus. This division keeps the Senate feeling relevant while ensuring Augustus controls all armed forces. He establishes a postal service, the cursus publicus, enabling official communication across the empire. He creates a fire brigade for Rome. He organizes grain distribution systematically. These aren't dramatic achievements, but they're the foundations of effective government. His social legislation attempts to restore traditional Roman morality. Laws encourage marriage and childbearing among the upper classes. Adultery becomes a criminal offense. Luxurious displays are restricted. Whether these laws work is questionable. Romans have never been good at legislating morality, but they signal Augustus's values. The succession becomes his obsession. He has no legitimate sons. His only child is Julia, his daughter from his first marriage. He marries her to his nephew Marcellus, grooming him as heir. Marcellus expires at 23. He marries Julia to Marcus Agrippa, his most capable general. They have 5 children. The 2 oldest sons, Gaius and Lucius Caesar, are adopted by Augustus and positioned as heirs. Both die young, Lucius at 19 and Gaius at 23. Augustus is forced to adopt his stepson Tiberius, a capable general but personally difficult. Tiberius is 45 years old when adopted, already distinguished in his own right. The adoption is pragmatic, not affectionate. Augustus needs an heir who can maintain stability. Tiberius is competent enough. Julia, meanwhile, becomes a problem. She's intelligent, witty, and thoroughly tired of being a political pawn married off multiple times. She begins taking lovers, openly flouting her father's moral legislation. When the scandals become public, Augustus has no choice, by his own laws, but to exile his only child. He never sees her again. His final years are spent securing the system he's created. He writes the Res Gestae Divi Augusti, the deeds of the divine Augustus, a first-person account of his achievements intended to be inscribed on his mausoleum. It's propaganda, but revealing propaganda. He's justifying his life, his actions, his transformation of Rome. In August 14 AD, while traveling in Campania, Augustus becomes ill. He's 75, ancient by Roman standards. He returns to Nola, where his father expired decades earlier. He gathers his family and closest advisors. His last words vary by source. One account has him asking if he played his part well in the comedy of life. Another has him instructing Tiberius to carry on his work. Either way, he expires peacefully in bed, surrounded by people who owe their positions to him. The Senate immediately votes to deify him. He becomes Divus Augustus, the divine Augustus. It's a Roman tradition with Hellenistic influence. Exceptional leaders become gods after death. Julius Caesar was deified. Now Augustus joins him. This creates something unprecedented. Tiberius becomes the son of a god. Subsequent emperors will all be adopted into the Julian family, making them descendants of the divine. The imperial cult begins, merging political authority with religious reverence. Augustus ruled for 41 years after Actium. He transformed Rome from a republic tearing itself apart into a stable, prosperous empire. The cost was political freedom, but Romans of his era gladly paid it. They'd experienced the alternative, decades of civil war, proscriptions, and instability. His legacy isn't just architectural or territorial. He created a template for autocracy that maintains republican appearances. Future emperors will be first among equals while wielding absolute power. They'll restore the republic while actually running an empire. The fiction Augustus created proves remarkably durable. The Pax Romana continues after his death. Not because wars cease, Rome continues expanding and fighting borders conflicts, but because civil war ends. Romans stop fighting each other for supreme power. Well, mostly. There will be exceptions. Trade flourishes. Roman engineering spreads. Roads, aqueducts, bridges, amphitheaters. Latin becomes the language of administration across the Western Empire. Greek remains dominant in the East. Roman law begins its evolution into the comprehensive system that will influence legal codes for 2 millennia. Poetry flourishes under imperial patronage. Virgil's Aeneid tells Rome's mythical foundation, connecting Augustus's line to Aeneas and therefore to Venus. Horace's odes celebrate Roman values and Augustan achievements. Ovid pushes boundaries with the Metamorphoses and erotic poetry until Augustus exiles him. The emperor's tolerance has limits. But there's a darkness beneath the marble and verse. Political freedoms have vanished. The Senate debates only what the emperor permits. Real power flows through imperial channels. Opposition means death or exile. The system works only so long as reasonable men hold imperial power. And Tiberius, the new emperor, is brilliant but profoundly damaged. His forced adoption, his failed marriage to Julia, his years of semi-retirement on Rhodes, they've left psychological scars. He's capable of governance, but suspicious of everyone and contemptuous of the Senate's sycophancy. The age of Augustus ends with his death. What comes next will test whether his system can survive difficult, eccentric, or mad emperors. The Republic had multiple magistrates and institutional checks. The Principate has one man at the top and hope that he's competent. Rome has traded civic participation for stability, freedom for security, the Republic for the Empire. For now, most Romans consider it a fair exchange. Whether their descendants will agree depends on who wears the purple in generations to come. The Julio-Claudian dynasty, Tiberius becomes emperor at age 55, and he doesn't want the job. He's spent decades as a general and administrator. He's competent, experienced, and deeply bitter about his position. Augustus forced him to divorce his beloved wife to marry Julia. Julia's behavior humiliated him. His adoption was necessity, not affection. He takes power because someone must, not because he desires it. The Senate offers him theatrical praise. He responds with contempt, seeing through their servility to the fear beneath. He wants honest counsel. They give him empty flattery. The relationship sours immediately. For the first years, Tiberius governs effectively. He's financially prudent, almost stingy, stabilizing the treasury. Augustus's building programs strained. He maintains the army and frontiers. He avoids unnecessary wars. It's competent but joyless administration. His nephew and adopted son Germanicus offers a contrast. Young, charismatic, and popular with the legions, Germanicus campaigns in Germania seeking to avenge the Teutoburg disaster. He recovers 2 of the lost eagles, the sacred legion standards, and punishes the tribes involved. Romans love him. Tiberius recalls him. Officially, it's strategic. Further Germanic conquest isn't worth the resources. Actually, it's political. Germanicus is too popular, too loved. He makes Tiberius look worse by comparison. Germanicus is sent to the east instead. In 19 AD, he expires in Antioch at age 33. Rumors immediately suggest poison ordered by Tiberius or his agents. Whether true or not, the rumors stick. Germanicus's widow, Agrippina the Elder, certainly believes them. She returns to Rome radiating hostility toward the emperor. Tiberius increasingly withdraws from public life. The Senate's sycophancy disgusts him. Political intrigues exhaust him. In 26 AD, he makes a fateful decision. He leaves Rome permanently for the island of Capri. He never returns. For the remaining 11 years of his reign, Tiberius governs the empire from an island villa, communicating through letters and selected agents. It's unprecedented and bizarre, but it works, sort of, because he's delegated real power to capable administrators. The most dangerous is Lucius Aelius Sejanus, Praetorian prefect. With Tiberius absent, Sejanus essentially runs Rome. He consolidates the previously scattered Praetorian cohorts into a single camp in the city, a military base inside Rome itself. He cultivates loyalty among the guards. He eliminates rivals through treason trials. He targets Germanicus's family particularly. Agrippina and her sons represent an alternative imperial line. Sejanus accuses them of treason, one by one. Agrippina is exiled and starves herself. Her eldest son is imprisoned and expires. Another son is executed. Only the youngest, Gaius, survives, brought to Capri to live with Tiberius. For years, Sejanus seems untouchable. He's even betrothed to Tiberius's granddaughter, positioning himself as a potential heir. But in 31 AD, Tiberius turns on him suddenly. The reasons are murky. Perhaps Tiberius learned of genuine plotting. Perhaps he simply realized Sejanus had become too powerful. Through careful maneuvering, Tiberius has Sejanus arrested and executed in a single day. His supporters are hunted down. His family is eliminated, including small children. It's thorough and brutal. But removing Caenus doesn't improve things. Tiberius becomes more paranoid, ordering more treason trials, more executions. His final years are marked by suspicion and cruelty. The capable administrator has become a bitter tyrant ruling from self-imposed exile. He expires in 37 AD at age 77. Some sources suggest his successor, young Gaius, possibly smothered him with a pillow. Whether true or not, few mourn. Tiberius was effective but unloved, competent but cold. Gaius Caligula succeeds him. He's 24 years old, the great-grandson of Augustus through his mother Agrippina. The Senate and people welcome him enthusiastically. Anything seems better than gloomy Tiberius. For about 6 months, Caligula governs reasonably. He grants bonuses, recalls exiles, and holds games. He seems like a fresh start. Then, he becomes seriously ill. When he recovers, something has changed. What follows is either genuine madness, a deliberate campaign to destroy senatorial dignity, or sources exaggerating for dramatic effect. Probably some combination. Caligula begins demanding to be worshipped as a living god. He dresses as Jupiter or Neptune. He allegedly plans to make his favorite horse a consul. He forces wealthy citizens to name him as heir, then arranges their deaths to collect inheritances. He orders unnecessary executions and humiliates senators for entertainment. The truth is difficult to extract from later hostile sources. But clearly something is very wrong. Whether Caligula is mentally ill, drunk on power, or simply enjoying tormenting the aristocracy, his behavior becomes intolerable. His relationship with his sisters becomes scandalous. When his favorite sister Drusilla expires, he has her deified. His treatment of the other sisters alternates between affection and cruelty. He launches a bizarre military operation to the English Channel, orders his troops to collect seashells as spoils from the ocean, and claims victory over Neptune. It's either insane or the most elaborate practical joke in imperial history. In 41 AD, after less than 4 years in power, Praetorian guards corner him in a palace corridor and stab him repeatedly. His wife and infant daughter are also taken down. The Praetorians have discovered they can make and unmake emperors. They find Caligula's uncle Claudius hiding behind a curtain in terror. He's 50 years old, physically disabled, possibly from cerebral palsy, and has survived by seeming harmless and bookish. The Praetorians proclaim him emperor, partly because he's family and partly because they can perhaps control him. Everyone underestimates Claudius. It's a fatal mistake. Claudius proves surprisingly capable. He's spent decades studying history and administration while everyone dismissed him as a stammering fool. Now he applies that knowledge effectively. He completes aqueducts, improving Rome's water supply. He improves the harbor at Ostia. He extends Roman citizenship to more provincials. He adds provinces, Mauritania, Thrace, and most significantly, Britannia. The invasion of Britannia in 43 AD is Claudius's signature achievement. Julius Caesar raided the island a century earlier but never conquered it. Claudius launches a serious invasion with 4 legions. The conquest is gradual and never complete. Scotland remains unconquered, but Roman Britannia becomes reality. Claudius even visits personally, the first emperor to set foot in Britannia. He stays only 16 days, but it's enough for propaganda purposes. He celebrates a triumph in Rome, claiming a great victory. His personal life is messier. His third wife, Messalina, is notoriously promiscuous to the point where ancient sources strain credibility describing her exploits. She allegedly marries another man in a public ceremony while still married to Claudius. When Claudius learns of this, he has her executed. His fourth wife is his niece, Agrippina the Younger, daughter of the elder Agrippina, sister of Caligula, survivor of her family's destruction. She's ambitious, intelligent, and ruthless. She has a son from a previous marriage, Lucius Domitius Ahenobarbus, later known as Nero. Agrippina convinces Claudius to adopt Nero and position him as heir over Claudius's own biological son, Britannicus. Nero marries Claudius's daughter Octavia. The succession is secured for Nero. In 54 AD, Claudius expires after eating mushrooms, almost certainly poisoned, almost certainly by Agrippina, though proof is impossible. He's deified posthumously, largely because Nero needs the legitimacy of being the son of a god. Nero becomes emperor at 16. Initially, he's guided by capable advisors, the philosopher Seneca and the Praetorian prefect Burrus. For the first 5 years, the Quinquennium Neronis, his reign is considered relatively good. competent administration, reasonable policies, public entertainments. Then things deteriorate. Nero has artistic ambitions. He wants to be a poet, musician, and performer. Roman aristocrats consider public performance degrading for an emperor, but Nero doesn't care. He performs in theaters, sings, races chariots. It's not the performing itself that's problematic, it's that he forces senators to attend and applaud. He arranges his mother's execution in 59 AD. Agrippina has become controlling and threatening. Multiple botched attempts finally succeed. She's stabbed to death by soldiers. Nero claims she was plotting against him. Few believe it, but few dare object. He divorces and exiles Octavia, then has her executed on false adultery charges. He marries his mistress Poppaea Sabina. When she dies, possibly from Nero kicking her while pregnant, possibly from natural causes, he castrates and marries a boy who resembles her. In 64 AD, Rome burns. The Great Fire destroys large sections of the city. Nero wasn't playing his lyre while Rome burned. He was at Antium, 35 miles away. But rumors spread that he started the fire to clear space for his Golden House palace. Nero needs scapegoats. He blames Christians, a small, strange sect following a recently executed Jewish preacher. The persecution is brutal. Christians are burned alive, torn apart by dogs, crucified. Tradition holds that Peter and Paul, Christianity's most important early leaders, perish in this persecution. The fire allows Nero to rebuild parts of Rome according to his vision. The Golden House, Domus Aurea, is an enormous palace complex with an artificial lake, rotating dining rooms, and walls covered in gold. At last I can live like a human being, he allegedly says. The cost is staggering. Nero debases the currency to fund it. He confiscates estates from wealthy families. He tours Greece instead of governing, performing in Greek athletic competitions and bringing back hundreds of crowns for victories nobody dared deny him. Military situations decay. A revolt in Judea begins in 66 AD, requiring serious military response. Britain nearly revolts. The governor of Hispania, Galba, rebels openly. In 68 AD, the Senate declares Nero a public enemy. His support collapses. Even the Praetorian Guard abandons him. Fleeing Rome, he hides in a villa outside the city. When soldiers approach to arrest him, he stabs himself in the throat with help from his secretary. His last words are allegedly, "What an artist perishes in me." With his death, the Julio-Claudian dynasty ends. Augustus's male line is extinct. The system he created survives, but his family doesn't. What follows is chaos, the year of the four emperors, as military commanders compete for the throne. The Julio-Claudians showed the Augustan system's fundamental weakness. Everything depends on the emperor's competence and sanity. Tiberius was capable but bitter. Caligula was possibly mad. Claudius was unexpectedly effective. Nero was self-indulgent and unstable. The Senate couldn't check them. The people couldn't remove them. Only violence, assassination, or military coup could end a bad emperor's reign. And violence is a terrible mechanism for political transition. But the empire survives. Provinces continue functioning. The army maintains discipline. Roman law operates. Trade flows. The system is robust enough to outlast individual rulers' failings. For now. The real test comes when the succession becomes militarized, when legions start proclaiming emperors and marching on Rome to enforce their choice. That's coming soon. The Julio-Claudian era ends not with institutional collapse, but with exhausted relief. Rome has survived 95 years of Augustus's heirs. What comes next will determine if the empire can survive transition between dynasties. The Flavian dynasty, stability and spectacle. The year 68 AD becomes 69 AD, and Rome burns through emperors like firewood. Galba, the elderly senator and general who rebelled against Nero, enters Rome and becomes emperor. He's 73, stern, and uninterested in the politicking required to maintain power. He alienates the Praetorians by refusing them the bonuses they expect. He alienates potential supporters through stingy policy and rigid morality. He lasts 7 months. The Rhine legions proclaim their commander Vitellius as emperor. The Praetorians and German guard turn on Galba in the Forum. He's hacked apart by soldiers while his few supporters flee. His head ends up on a pike. Otho, who conspired against Galba, is proclaimed emperor by the remaining Praetorians. He's a former friend of Nero. They supposedly shared Poppaea Sabina before Nero took her as wife. He's cultured, vain, and militarily inexperienced. Meanwhile, Vitellius marches on Italy with legions from Germania. They meet at Bedriacum in northern Italy. Otho's forces are defeated. Rather than prolong civil war, Otho takes his own life after ruling 3 months. Sources say he died with dignity, accepting responsibility for the bloodshed he'd caused. Vitellius becomes emperor and enters Rome with his German legions. He's gluttonous, crude, and politically incompetent. He executes Otho's supporters and settles in for what he assumes will be a long, comfortable reign. But the Eastern legions have other ideas. They proclaim Titus Flavius Vespasianus, Vespasian, as emperor. He's a career military man currently suppressing the Jewish revolt in Judea. He's from a non-aristocratic family, making him a new man in Roman terms. He's also capable, experienced, and popular with his troops. His supporters invade Italy. Another battle at Bedriacum. Vitellius's forces are defeated. Rome descends into street fighting as Vitellius's supporters and Vespasian's partisans battle in the city itself. The temple of Jupiter on the Capitoline Hill burns during the fighting, a terrible omen. Vitellius is dragged through the streets by Vespasian's soldiers, tortured and executed. His body is thrown in the Tiber. He ruled 8 months, 4 emperors in 1 year. Civil war, street battles in Rome itself. The Augustan system's worst nightmare has manifested. When succession isn't clear, military commanders fight it out with legions loyal to individual generals rather than the state. But Vespasian proves different from his predecessors. He doesn't come from the old aristocracy. He's not performing imperial dignity. He's just himself, blunt and practical. When someone mocks his humble origins, he jokes along. When he's dying a decade later, he'll quip, "Dear me, I think I'm becoming a god." He has 2 adult sons, Titus and Domitian, establishing a clear succession. The Flavian dynasty begins. Vespasian's first task is restoring financial stability. Nero's extravagance and the civil war have emptied the treasury. Vespasian raises taxes, even introducing a urine tax on public latrines, leading to his son's complaint. Vespasian's response, "Money doesn't smell." The phrase becomes proverbial. He rebuilds Rome. The capital must be reconstructed after the fire. Public buildings damaged in the fighting need repair. Infrastructure throughout Italy requires restoration after a year of armies marching back and forth. And then there's Nero's Golden House. That enormous palace complex built on confiscated land after the Great Fire symbolizes everything wrong with Nero's reign. Vespasian makes a public statement by filling in the artificial lake and building something for the people on that site, the Flavian Amphitheater. We call it the Colosseum. Construction begins around 72 AD. The engineering is remarkable, a massive elliptical structure, 4 stories tall, able to hold 50,000 spectators. Concrete and stone, underground chambers for animals and gladiators, a retractable awning for shade, sophisticated drainage for the elaborate staged naval battles they'll occasionally flood the arena to perform. It's propaganda through architecture. Nero built a palace for himself. Vespasian builds entertainment for the people. While construction continues, Vespasian deals with the Jewish revolt. His son Titus has been conducting the siege of Jerusalem. In 70 AD, after months of brutal fighting and starvation, the city falls. The Second Temple, Judaism's holiest site, is destroyed. Only the Western Wall remains, still standing 2 millennia later. The victory is celebrated with a triumph in Rome. The treasures of the temple, including the great golden menorah, are paraded through the streets. Titus's arch, still standing in Rome's Forum, depicts soldiers carrying these sacred objects. Judea becomes a smoldering ruin. The Jewish population is devastated through death, enslavement, and exile. The Jewish diaspora accelerates. It's a cultural catastrophe whose effects persist through history. The Fiscus Judaicus, Jewish tax, is imposed. Jews throughout the empire must pay a special tax, originally intended for the temple, now funding Roman projects including the Colosseum. The symbolism is deliberately cruel. Vespasian reigns for 10 years. Competent, stable, boring in the best possible way, he restores the Senate's dignity, though not its power. He promotes capable men regardless of birth. He maintains the frontiers, he balances the budget, he expires naturally in 79 AD, one of the few emperors to do so. His last words, joking about deification, capture his essential character, irreverent, practical, self-aware. Titus succeeds smoothly. He's 39, militarily proven, and already sharing power with his father. The transition is seamless, exactly what the Augustan system is supposed to achieve, but rarely does. Then disaster strikes, multiple disasters. In August 79 AD, Mount Vesuvius erupts with catastrophic force. The cities of Pompeii and Herculaneum are buried under volcanic ash and pyroclastic flows. Thousands perish. Pliny the Elder, the famous natural historian, expires investigating the eruption. His nephew, Pliny the Younger, provides the only eyewitness written account. The buried cities are lost for 17 centuries. When archaeologists rediscover them in the 1700s, they find Roman life frozen in time. Houses, art, graffiti, bodies. The eruption is a tragedy, but it accidentally preserves Roman daily life more completely than anywhere else. Titus responds with characteristic effectiveness, sending aid and personally supervising relief efforts. But the disasters continue. In 80 AD, a fire ravages Rome for 3 days, destroying buildings the 64 AD fire missed. Then plague strikes, spreading through the crowded city. Titus works tirelessly, spending imperial funds on relief and reconstruction. Despite this, he completes and dedicates the Colosseum in 80 AD. The opening games last 100 days. Thousands of animals are taken down. Gladiatorial combat, theatrical performances. The arena is flooded for mock naval battles. It's spectacular, expensive propaganda. Titus is popular, capable, generous with disaster relief, providing spectacular entertainment. Romans call him the delight of mankind. He seems destined for a long, successful reign. He expires in September 81 AD, possibly from fever. He's barely 41. Rumors immediately suggest his younger brother poisoned him, though no proof exists. His reign lasted just over 2 years. Domitian succeeds him. He's 30 years old and has been waiting in Titus's shadow throughout their father's and brother's reigns. He's capable but paranoid, educated but bitter. He spent a decade watching his older brother receive praise while he handles administrative duties without glory. Initially, his reign continues, Flavian competence. He campaigns on the Rhine and Danube frontiers personally, something neither Vespasian nor Titus did. He strengthens fortifications. He reorganizes provincial administration. He builds extensively in Rome, including a new palace on the Palatine Hill. But Domitian's personality poisons his relationships. He insists on being addressed as Dominus et Deus, Lord and God. This might be official terminology or paranoid megalomania. Sources hostile to him emphasize the latter. He becomes increasingly suspicious of plots. Treason trials multiply. Senators are executed on flimsy charges. The reign of terror, so carefully avoided by Vespasian and Titus, returns under Domitian. He bans philosophers from Rome, seeing them as potentially subversive. He increases taxes and confiscates estates to fund his building projects and military campaigns. He cultivates the army's loyalty through bonuses, while alienating the Senate through contempt and cruelty. His military campaigns have mixed results. He claims victories in Germania and Dacia, celebrating triumphs in Rome. But the Dacian king Decebalus remains undefeated, having fought Rome to a negotiated settlement rather than submission. Domitian spins this as victory. The army knows better. By the 90s AD, his paranoia is consuming him. Informers thrive, senators live in fear, even members of the imperial household aren't safe. When his cousin Flavius Clemens and his wife Domitilla, possibly Christians or Jewish sympathizers, are accused of atheism, refusing traditional Roman worship, Clemens is executed and Domitilla exiled. The conspiracy that finally ends him includes his own household, his wife Domitia, palace officials, praetorian prefects, people close enough to reach him. In September 96 AD, he's stabbed repeatedly in his bedroom by conspirators who include his chamberlain. He fights back, trying to reach a dagger he's hidden nearby, but he's overwhelmed. He's 54. He's ruled 15 years, longer than most emperors. But he's eliminated so thoroughly that the Senate votes damnatio memoriae, official condemnation of his memory. His name is chiseled from monuments, his statues are destroyed, his coins are melted down. The Flavian dynasty ends. 3 emperors across 27 years. They restored stability after civil war, balanced the budget, built monuments that still stand, and expanded the frontiers. They proved the empire could survive transition between dynasties, but they also showed the system's limits. When a bad emperor holds power, there's no institutional remedy except conspiracy and violence. Domitian's assassination is celebrated, but it's still extrajudicial execution. The Senate moves quickly to prevent another civil war. They elevate one of their own, Marcus Catius Nerva, a respected elderly senator with no children and no military backing. He's chosen precisely because he's not threatening, can't found a dynasty, and will serve as transitional figure. Nerva rules barely 2 years, but he makes one crucial decision that changes Roman history. He adopts the most capable general available as his son and heir, Marcus Ulpius Traianus, Trajan. The age of adoptive succession begins. For the next century, emperors will choose capable successors and adopt them rather than defaulting to biological sons. It's the Principate's golden age, 5 emperors, each selected for competence, each serving effectively. The Flavian era gave Rome stability and the Colosseum. What comes next gives it the height of imperial power and prosperity. The empire is about to reach its zenith. The 5 good emperors, zenith of empire. Marcus Caecus Nerva is 66 when he becomes emperor. Nobody expects him to live long, which is precisely why he's chosen. After Domitian's tyranny, Rome needs a pause, a moderate transitional figure who won't terrify the Senate or launch purges. Nerva provides exactly that. He swears he won't execute any senators. He recalls exiles. He provides land grants and debt relief to struggling citizens. He restores confiscated property. It's a deliberate reversal of Domitian's policies, healing, not ruling. But Nerva has a problem. He has no military support. The Praetorian Guard still remembers Domitian favorably. He paid bonuses and maintained discipline. In October 97 AD, they mutiny, besieging Nerva in his palace and demanding Domitian's assassins be handed over for execution. Nerva is helpless. He even offers his own neck to their swords, saying, "Take him instead of the conspirators." The Praetorians refuse. They want specific targets. Eventually, they get them. Several of Domitian's executioners are handed over and eliminated. Nerva's authority is revealed as fiction. The lesson is clear. Emperors need military backing. Senatorial dignity means nothing without legions. Nerva, recognizing reality, makes his crucial decision. In October 97 AD, he adopts Marcus Ulpius Traianus as his son and heir. Trajan is 44, an experienced military commander currently governing Germania Superior. He's not from Rome, he's from Hispania, making him the first provincial emperor. He's popular with the troops, capable as an administrator, and has no obvious vices. Nerva expires naturally in January 98 AD, having ruled 16 months. The succession is peaceful. Trajan doesn't even rush back to Rome. He spends months on the Rhine and Danube, visiting legions and ensuring frontier stability before entering the capital. It's a statement. The emperor serves the empire, not his own comfort. Rome can wait. Trajan's reign marks the beginning of Rome's greatest territorial extent. He's the last emperor to pursue significant conquest. His targets are strategic: Dacia and Parthia. Dacia, roughly modern Romania, has been a problem since Domitian's inconclusive campaigns. King Decebalus is capable and has created a centralized kingdom that threatens Rome's Danube frontier. More importantly, Dacia has gold mines. Lots of them. Trajan invades in 101 AD with a massive force. The First Dacian War lasts 2 years. The fighting is brutal in Dacia's mountainous terrain. Decebalus eventually sues for peace, becoming a client king under Roman oversight. It doesn't last. Decebalus rebuilds his strength and resumes hostile actions. Trajan returns in 105 AD for the Second Dacian War. This time, the goal is complete conquest. The campaign is commemorated in Trajan's Column, still standing in Rome. The carved spiral reliefs show bridges being built, legions marching, sieges conducted, Dacians being defeated. At the campaign's end, Decebalus takes his own life rather than face capture. His head is sent to Rome. Dacia becomes a Roman province. Settlers from throughout the empire colonize it. The gold mines enrich the imperial treasury. Trajan returns to Rome and celebrates with games lasting 123 days. 10,000 gladiators fight. 11,000 animals perish. The spectacle is unprecedented. The Dacian gold funds Trajan's Forum, the largest and most elaborate of Rome's imperial forums. The architecture is magnificent. Trajan's Column stands at its heart, 40 meters tall, his ashes eventually placed in its base. But Trajan isn't finished. In 113 AD, he launches his most ambitious campaign, the conquest of Parthia. It's the dream that got Crassus destroyed and that Caesar planned before his assassination. Trajan will succeed where they failed. Initially, it works. He captures Armenia, he invades Mesopotamia, he captures the Parthian capital of Ctesiphon. He reaches the Persian Gulf in 116 AD, the furthest east Rome ever extends. He stands on the shore looking across at India and reportedly regrets he's too old to reach it. But controlling territory is different from conquering it. Rebellions erupt behind his advancing army. Supply lines stretch impossibly thin. The Parthians employ their traditional tactics: retreat, harass, strike at weak points. Trajan falls ill in 117 AD, maybe stroke, maybe other causes. He begins the journey back to Rome, but only makes it to Selinus in Cilicia. He expires there in August, age 63. He's ruled 19 years, the second longest reign since Augustus. Before expiring, he supposedly adopts Publius Aelius Hadrianus, Hadrian, as his heir. Or possibly Trajan's wife Plotina forges the adoption after his death. Either way, Hadrian becomes emperor with the army's support. Hadrian immediately reverses Trajan's expansion. The Parthian conquests are abandoned as indefensible. Armenia returns to client state status. Rome's frontier retreats to the Euphrates. It's pragmatic but controversial. Romans have been taught to value conquest, not retrenchment. Hadrian's philosophy is consolidation. Make the existing empire defensible and prosperous rather than chasing additional territory. The result is history's most traveled emperor. He spends over half his reign touring provinces: Britain, Germania, Gaul, Hispania, Africa, Asia, Greece, the eastern provinces. He inspects fortifications, reviews troops, audits finances, and dedicates buildings. He's personally present in ways no emperor has been since Augustus. In Britain, around 122 AD, he orders construction of a wall across the island's narrow neck. Hadrian's Wall, 80 Roman miles of stone fortification marking where Roman Britain ends and unconquered Caledonia begins. It's not primarily military. The wall is too thinly manned to stop a serious invasion. It's a boundary marker, a customs barrier, a statement. This is Rome's edge. Similar fortifications go up elsewhere. The Rhine-Danube frontier is strengthened with permanent fortifications. The concept shifts from expansion to defined, defendable borders. Hadrian is intellectually curious, personally visiting Athens multiple times and immersing himself in Greek culture. He grows a beard, the first emperor to do so, in the Greek philosophical fashion. He writes poetry. He designs buildings, including the Pantheon's reconstruction. His personal life is marked by a passionate relationship with a Greek youth named Antinous. In 130 AD, Antinous drowns in the Nile under mysterious circumstances. Hadrian's grief is extreme. He founds a city, Antinopolis, at the spot. He has Antinous deified. Statues of the beautiful youth are erected throughout the empire. Roman aristocrats find this excessive. Greek-style homosexual relationships aren't scandalous per se. Roman men often have relationships with younger males. But the depth of Hadrian's grief and the religious honors for a Greek boy strike many as undignified. Hadrian also crushes the Bar Kokhba revolt, 132 to 136 AD, the third and final major Jewish uprising. Simon Bar Kokhba leads a rebellion that initially succeeds, establishing an independent Jewish state for 3 years. Rome's response is devastating. Legion after legion pours in Judea. The fighting is brutal. When it ends, 500,000 Jews are dead, according to Roman sources, probably exaggerated, but reflecting genuine catastrophe. Jerusalem is refounded as Aelia Capitolina, a Roman city where Jews are banned. Judea itself is renamed Syria Palestina, deliberately invoking the Philistines to erase Jewish connection to the land. The Jewish homeland is gone. The diaspora becomes permanent. This is Rome at its most ruthlessly effective, destroying a people's connection to their ancestral land as punishment for resistance. Hadrian's later years are marked by illness and increasing cruelty. He orders executions of senators on limited pretexts. His chosen heir, Lucius Aelius Caesar, expires before him. Hadrian then adopts Antoninus Pius on condition that Antoninus adopt both Marcus Aurelius and Lucius Verus as future heirs. Hadrian expires in July 138 AD, age 62. The Senate initially refuses deification. He's become too unpopular. Only Antoninus's insistence gets him the honor. Antoninus earns his title Pius partly through this devotion to his adopted father's memory. Antoninus Pius reigns 23 years, 138 to 161 AD. It's the least eventful reign of the 5 good emperors. No major wars, no crises, no dramatic building projects or policy changes. Just competent, boring administration that keeps the empire prosperous and stable. He barely leaves Italy during his entire reign. While Hadrian traveled constantly, Antoninus governs from Rome. It works because the system Hadrian built is solid enough to function without constant imperial presence. The frontiers remain stable, the economy prospers, legal reforms continue, the provinces are well governed. It's the Pax Romana at its most complete. Peace maintained not through constant military action, but through stable institutions and competent administration. Antoninus expires peacefully in March 161 AD, age 74. His adoptive son Marcus Aurelius succeeds smoothly, sharing power with his adopted brother Lucius Verus as co-emperor. It's unprecedented, two emperors ruling simultaneously, but it works. The age of easy success is ending. What comes next will test whether the empire can handle crisis as effectively as it managed prosperity. But for a moment, from Nerva's accession in 96 AD to Antoninus's death in 161 AD, Rome experiences 65 years of stable, capable government. The adoptive succession works. Emperors choose competent heirs rather than defaulting to biological sons. The result is Rome's golden age. The empire reaches its maximum territorial extent. Trade flourishes across the Mediterranean and beyond. Roman coins are found in India, Roman glass in China. Cities throughout the provinces prosper. Roman law continues developing into the sophisticated system that will influence legal codes for millennia. Architectural achievements proliferate. The Pantheon with its impossible dome. Hadrian's Wall marking Britain's edge. Aqueducts carrying water across valleys. Roads connecting Britain to Syria. Amphitheaters and theaters in hundreds of cities. Rome has transformed the Mediterranean world into a single connected civilization. But perfection is temporary. Even golden ages end. Marcus Aurelius will spend his reign fighting wars and plague. His son Commodus will reveal the adoptive system's vulnerability. It works only when emperors choose successors wisely. Make one bad choice and the system collapses. The zenith has been reached. From here, there's nowhere to go but down. Appia, Via Flaminia, Spanish and French roads following Roman routes, the engineering principles, drainage, foundation layers, cambered surfaces, milestones. These survived in practice even when theory was forgotten. Aqueducts demonstrated hydraulic engineering, gravity-fed water systems, spanning valleys, tunneling through hills, the Pont de Gard in southern France, the Segovia Aqueduct in Spain, still standing, still impressive. They proved what's possible with planning and execution. Arches, vaults, domes, columns. These architectural elements define Western building. Transmitted through churches and palaces. Renaissance architects studied Roman ruins, learned proportion and technique. Palladio's villas echo Rome. Baroque churches enlarge Roman forms. Neoclassicism explicitly revives them. Any government building with columns is quoting Rome. The visual language of authority, power, and civilization was established by Roman architecture. It's so embedded we don't notice. Courts, capitals, museums, universities, banks, they all speak Roman. The concept of empire itself is Roman. The word comes from imperium, the authority to command. Before Rome, there were large kingdoms. Persia, Alexander's short-lived empire. But Rome created the template, multi-ethnic state, universal law, single citizenship, infrastructure connecting disparate regions, cultural assimilation while allowing local customs. Every later empire copies this. The Holy Roman Empire explicitly claimed Roman succession. Charlemagne crowned by the Pope on Christmas 800 AD as Roman Emperor. The title persisted until 1806. Napoleon crowned himself. Mussolini invoked Roman glory. Hitler studied Roman expansion. The British Empire saw itself as Rome's heir. Civilizing mission, law and order, global trade, infrastructure, Latin mottos on coats of arms, classical education for administrators. The British Raj in India mirrors Roman provincial administration. Even anti-imperial movements use Roman vocabulary. Republic, revolution, liberty. These are Roman concepts deployed against Roman-style empires. The language of liberation is Roman. Rome created the idea of Western civilization itself, a cultural sphere defined by Greek philosophy, Roman law, and Christian religion. This trinity shapes European identity. Renaissance, Reformation, Enlightenment, all building on this Roman-mediated classical foundation. Universities trace to medieval institutions that studied Roman texts. The liberal arts curriculum comes from Roman education: grammar, rhetoric, logic, arithmetic, geometry, music, astronomy. This is how Rome trained citizens, how the West still educates. Scientific method owes debts to Roman administrative practice. Systematic observation, record-keeping, replicable procedures, institutional memory. Romans didn't invent science, but they created bureaucratic structures that preserve and transmit knowledge. This matters more than genius moments. The calendar you're using, the months, July for Julius Caesar, August for Augustus. The 7-day week, the dating system, Anno Domini, year of our Lord. These are Roman or Roman spread conventions. Time itself is measured in Roman terms. The Eastern Empire, Byzantium, preserved this heritage through the Middle Ages. While Western Europe fragmented, Constantinople maintained libraries, Greek manuscripts, classical learning. When Islamic scholars translated Greek philosophy, they often used Byzantine sources. When the Renaissance recovered classical texts, many came through Byzantine refugees fleeing Ottoman conquest in 1453 AD. Byzantine scholars brought manuscripts to Italy, inspired humanist movement, sparked renewed interest in classical antiquity. The Renaissance is partially Byzantine scholars sharing Roman heritage with the West. Rome never fully disappeared. Political authority ended, unity shattered, but the civilization continued, transformed, adapted, survived. Germanic kingdoms in the West considered themselves Rome's successors. They used Roman titles, employed Roman administrators, followed Roman law where it persisted. The Catholic Church maintained Latin, preserved texts, copied manuscripts. Monasteries were nodes of continuity. They connected medieval Europe to classical past. Without them, most Roman literature would be lost. When modern nation-states emerged, they drew on Roman examples. France as the Gallic province transformed, Italy reunifying as one Rome, Spain as Hispania reborn, Britain seeing itself as Rome beyond Rome's frontier. National identities are often framed through Roman history. The question isn't whether Rome influenced the modern world, it's whether anything modern exists without Roman influence. Law, language, religion, government, architecture, engineering, military organization, urban planning, calendar, the alphabet you're reading, all carry Roman marks. Rome fell politically, never fell culturally. The Western Empire ended in 476 AD. The Eastern Empire continued until 1453 AD. But Roman civilization persists today. In languages, institutions, concepts, values, physical structures, legal systems, religious organizations, educational models. You can visit the Colosseum, walk Roman roads, see aqueducts, read Virgil in Latin, study Caesar's campaigns, apply Roman law, celebrate Christmas on Rome's solar calendar, structure government as a republic, debate in a senate, assert your rights as a citizen. These are Roman gifts, or Roman impositions, depending on your perspective, but undeniably Roman in origin. The modern West, and through Western influence, much of the modern world is Roman, modified, adapted, mixed with other traditions, but fundamentally building on foundations Rome laid. The story of Rome is the story of how a small city on the Tiber became the blueprint for civilization itself, how a republic of farmers became an empire spanning continents, how that empire fractured, but its cultural DNA replicated everywhere, how ideas, once established, outlive their creators by millennia. Rome conquered with swords, it rules still through law, language, and legacy. That is why Rome matters, not just as history, as present, as foundation for everything that came after. To understand the modern world, you must understand Rome, where ideas of justice came from, how languages developed, why governments are structured as they are, what civilization itself means. Rome provided answers to fundamental questions. How do strangers live together peacefully? How is power legitimized? What are the limits of authority? How do societies preserve and transmit knowledge? How can diverse peoples unite? Not always good answers. Rome was brutal, enslaving, hierarchical, built on conquest, but it generated structures that persist, showed what's possible at scale, created tools for organizing complexity. These tools, refined and modified, built the modern world. 2,000 years after Augustus, nearly 1,500 years after Constantinople's fall, Rome endures, not as empire, as inheritance. Every person living under rule of law, speaking Romance language, practicing Christianity, studying in universities, living in cities, using Roman-derived concepts daily. The empire fell, the civilization remains transformed, distributed, embedded, invisible, because it's everywhere. That is Rome's legacy. Not monuments, not borders, not emperors, but ideas made institution, concepts made culture. A blueprint for how humanity organizes itself that persists despite all attempts to transcend it. Rome fell, Rome endures, and will as long as humans seek to build something larger than themselves, to create order from chaos, to establish justice through law, to unite strangers under common purpose. Rome showed it's possible, showed how. The methods remain, the dream persists. That is the entire history of the Roman Empire, from seven hills to the world. From kingdom to republic to empire to legend, from political entity to cultural foundation, from past to eternal present. Rome lives still, in every courthouse, every senate chamber, every romance language, every concept of citizenship and republic and law, in the very idea that civilization is something we build, not inherit, something universal, not tribal. That is Rome's true conquest, not of territory, of imagination, of how we conceive of ourselves as civilized beings. The eagles have fallen, the legions are gone, the emperors are dust, but the idea of Rome, that idea marches on, shaping the world in its image, still, always, perhaps forever.